like to call this workshop to order at 2 p.m. Please note we may not complete all the agenda items today, and the order has been adjusted where number 3 and number 4 will be swapped. Thank you. All right, item number 1, 26-3464, presentation of Somerset and Explorer K-8 access by Jim Lipsey, school planner, Caroline Mockler, staff counsel, and Christine Kowaleski of Gray Robinson, PA. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, school board members, Superintendent Pender. We're presenting today a summary of how the developer for the Somerset development has agreed to reconfigure access to Explorer K-8 from Northcliffe Boulevard. This will facilitate construction of a new 4-lane extension of Explorer Boulevard to the south into the development to a traffic circle, while also providing improvements to the school, including new extended parent queuing lanes on school property, new sidewalks, new fencing and gates, and a new marquee sign. And then the second half of our presentation will provide an overview of multiple legal agreements needed between the school board, Hernando County, Duke Energy, and the developer to facilitate these. We'll be presenting today briefly a vicinity map to help orient you to the area under discussion, a brief history of how we got to where we are, the current and proposed school access configuration, together with an overview of the legal agreements. The area under discussion, this map and all maps in our discussion, north is to the right. So this gives us the perspective of the roadway and development from the school. And so on the right-hand side of the map, you'll see Northcliffe Boulevard. Running off of Northcliffe Boulevard in the white dotted lines, that represents a 100-foot wide easement for the power lines for Duke Energy, underneath of which is the access to Explorer K-8. And then we see the school there in the lower right-hand corner. And then above that and to the left are phases 1, 2, and 3 of Somerset. Phase 1 is at the top right, phase 2 is in the top center, and phase 3 is shown in yellow. Briefly, how did we get here? The property was originally owned by a gentleman by the name of Loren Ham. There was a judgment in 1995 for taking and a permanent easement that provided the easement for Duke that was then known as Florida Power, and it also provided the owner the right to place parallel roads within the power line's easement and on either side. Fast forward to 2006, and that's when the school was built. There was an encroachment agreement executed by the school district and Duke that allowed for encroachment into the permanent easement exclusively for public school access to and from Northcliffe Boulevard. Then in 2015, there was an access agreement executed with the developer allowing Mark 425 to use the school board's access to Northcliffe for the project in exchange for additional access and queuing for stacking lanes, perimeter fencing, gates, and a new sign. In 2015, Duke issued a letter of no objection to proposed conceptual drawings that were for the realignment of the roads within that permanent easement, pending a review of final plans. In 2022, there was an amended access agreement that provided for revised access and queuing plan. In 2022, also the development agreement provided for the extension of Explorer K-8 access drive by means of that 4-collector road to a traffic circle to the south at Bay Drive, and also the dedication of the portion of Explorer Boulevard that was on the district's property deeding that over to the county. Then in 2023, Duke raised objections to the parallel driveways that were within the transmission corridor, and they said at the time that any changes to current school access would nullify that encroachment agreement. So that's really where a lot of the contention and slowdown in the project happened. Late in 2024, the county published an agenda with a proposed resolution asking the school board to dedicate and transfer to the county that portion of property so that Explorer could become a county road. Duke issued an objection at that time asking for postponement of the resolution, but then the Board of County Commissioner proceeded and adopted that resolution in 2024, which was then sent to the board. Here we are in 2025. In September, we learned that negotiations between the county and the developer and Duke had proceeded to a point where Duke is now willing to agree to a revised queuing plan, which is what we are presenting here today. So this image is a close-up of the map that we showed you before. It shows current access off of Northcliffe Boulevard, and the yellow rectangles, the yellow lines, basically indicate property lines. So the school district owns the portion from Northcliffe to the corner of the school property and accesses the school through that. Then access continues. The area shaded in pink there is actually a parcel owned by the developer that the school currently crosses to get into the school. It should be mentioned that on the bottom portion of that image, Tillery Road, that school access will remain as it is today. Tillery is not a thoroughfare through the school. It will not become a thoroughfare through the school and has no part in this discussion. Taking a look at the proposed school access, this shows basically an overall access plan, not all the way out to Northcliffe, but enough of a view that you can see that Explorer Boulevard will become a 4-lane boulevard that proceeds to the south. It adjusts a little bit and then gets out from under that Duke easement. On the right-hand portion there, entering the school, you can see there's a reconfigured entrance to staff and visitors parking that allows both left and right exit onto North Boulevard. Further down to the left, a new entrance to a 2,000 lineal foot, 2-lane parent queuing lane. That entrance is moved further south than previous versions had shown. And this facilitates on-site stacking. Currently today, we can accommodate about 30 vehicles on the school property. This will increase that to about 200 vehicles. And we'll take a closer look at this in just a minute. Entrance to the bus loop is shifted yet further south, and the purpose for this is to alleviate congestion caused by commingled parent and bus traffic, which we currently have today. Sidewalks onto the campus, the primary sidewalk will be located midway between the parent loop and the bus loop to minimize pedestrian interaction with vehicle movements in the area. Taking a slightly closer look at this, on the north end, we see the entrance to the staff parking is now completely separated from the entrance to the parent pickup lanes. This allows not only direct access into staff parking, but also allows a left and right exit from staff parking onto Explorer Boulevard. You'll see down at the bottom of the page there, there is a sidewalk that was initially suggested by our civil engineer. We have since declined that due to the sheer volume of walkers. If you've been to that campus, you know how many walkers are there. And that sidewalk, currently there is no gate, there's no connection or passage through to a Zora Road, I believe it's called. That's a small residential street that currently has no access to the school. And I can imagine the lashback that we would hear if we had hundreds of walkers suddenly going down that street. You'll see on this, if you look at Explorer Boulevard, on the upper right-hand corner of that image, there is now a dedicated left turn lane from Explorer Boulevard into the two-lane parent pickup queue. So that stacking that we talked about earlier, this only helps add to that, to provide additional stacking on Explorer Boulevard. Again, the bus loop entry is shifted further south, again, away from parent traffic. And then the sidewalks onto the campus, one coming from the top part of this image, crosses from the west side of Explorer, and you'll see that that's located between the parent loop entry and the bus loop entry. And we've requested that this sidewalk be elevated, much like a speed table. An elevated crosswalk helps make the students more visible to traffic, and it just enhances safety. Walkers that would be approaching the school from the south, there is also a sidewalk on the east side of Explorer that comes in, shown here below the bus loop, and connects to existing sidewalk on the property. So that's the proposed configuration after multiple iterations and years of dialogue. That's finally where all parties have ended up, and this has been vetted by not only our facilities department, but also by the Safe Schools department, the school principal, transportation. We've had multiple district staff reviewing this to arrive at this consensus. Moving on now.
No, maybe, hold on one second. Ms. Rodriguez has a question.
I just wanted to say one of the biggest benefits is that we would be eliminating the backup on Northcliffe Boulevard.
That
has been a nightmare.
Yes.
And for all of the people who live there in those homes, it has just been terrible year after year. So that would be a huge benefit.
Absolutely.
Okay, you may continue.
And we'll turn the presentation over now to Ms. Mokler.
Hello, Board Chair, Superintendent, and Board members. I'm Caroline Mokler, Staff Counsel to the Hernando County School District.
Sorry, I'm going to stop you. I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson had a question before we move forward.
This is just a small question, Mr. Lipsky. The turn for the buses off of Explorer Boulevard on that furthest to the left on that picture, how many buses are held in that left-hand turn lane for the buses to turn? You have two lanes going, I guess it's actually east and west on Explorer Boulevard. Then you have them making a left turn to get into the staging area for the buses. How many buses can sit at that juncture before they make the turn to come into Explorer? Is there room for 2 or 3 buses there?
First, that's not a dedicated left turn lane for the buses like it is for the parent loop. And you can see there are merge arrows shown because just after that, it merges from 4 lanes down to 2, I believe.
Okay.
And if I had to guess, I don't know the length on this. The short answer is I'm not positive. If I had to guess, I would say probably 3 buses.
Okay. I was curious because I don't see the
crosswalk.
stacking there being an issue. Because that's 2-lane and thoughtfully enough, there's a turn lane for the parents to get into the school. I would think the same consideration, it would be at least an area where the buses could get out of traffic as well, and that's the only reason I was asking. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Mockler, you can continue.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So in order to effectuate the transfer and the improvements to Explorer Boulevard, several legal agreements need to be executed. First of all, we're going to go over Duke Energy's letter of no objection. So Duke Energy has authored a conditional letter of no objection, which Duke Energy and the developer have agreed to, and the county wishes to move forward with. In the conditional letter of no objection, it states that Duke Energy has conditionally approved the Explorer Boulevard Improvement Project 60% construction plans, subject to specific conditions and future final approval. The conditional approval is contingent upon Duke Energy Transmission receiving and reviewing final plans stamped and signed by a licensed professional engineer, which must meet all detailed conditions before construction begins. And a final letter of no objection will be issued within 30 days of notification that all permits and governmental approvals have been obtained, provided that there are no incompatible designs or changes. We need all parties to confirm this, but since the final plans are, I believe, approved, Mr. Taylor with Acts 88 suggests that this be converted from a conditional letter of no objection to a final letter of no objection. The letter of no objection goes on to state conditions for approval. The conditions include that Duke Energy does not comment on present or future vegetation plantings, but retains the right to manage vegetation within or outside the easement to ensure safe and reliable service. No stockpiling or storage of materials, dirt, or equipment is permitted with the Duke Energy transmission easement area, nor may combustible materials be placed there. Contractors should not operate equipment within 25 feet of the electrical structures, and all slopes must be 4:1 or less. Underground facilities must bear a load of 80,000 pounds, and irrigation systems and signs are not permitted in the easement area, except for government-required signs. Any damage to the transmission line or its structures related to the project is the responsibility of the developer or owner. And Duke Energy Transmission retains the right to use its entire easement area for electric line operations regardless of pre-existing encroachment agreements. Additional comments and requirements include that any incompatible design changes involving transmission easements must be reviewed by Duke Energy Transmissions. Proper clearances must be maintained, and any required transmission line modifications will be the owner's responsibility. Duke Energy Transmission heavy equipment access must not be restricted during the project. The owner is responsible for ensuring compliance with applicable laws and regulations, including safety codes and acts. And the final letter of no objection will supersede the previously approved encroachment agreement, terminating its conditions and terms. The exhibits to the letter of no objection include site plans, Duke Energy use guidelines for encroachments involving transmission easements, Duke Energy Look Up and Live brochure, and the Duke Energy Utility Relocation Agreement.
Ms. Mockler,
Yes.
may I ask Duke Energy if she could maybe come up and I could ask her a question as far as maybe what the timeline could be for this final letter, or will the final letter hold up, or do we need an encroachment agreement from Duke?
The final letter will hold up, and we have other agreements in here which it terminates the encroachment agreement. So I'll
Okay.
get to that
Okay.
legal document.
Are you able to maybe give us a timeline or come up? Thank you. If you can state your name for the record.
I'm Galen Holloway. I'm the Government and Community Relations Manager for Duke Energy for this area. I am not our legal representative, but I'm here to speak to answer any questions you may have. In terms of timeline, our standard, we have told the parties in this conversation that once the 100% plans are received, which they were received midweek, we'll need about 10 days to review them before we can give the approval that we can move forward with the letter of no objection. I did speak with our team once those were reviewed midweek last week, and there were no substantial changes to them, and so we don't affect any substantial changes to the conversations that we've had thus far.
Okay.
So those, I believe the date that we communicated was December 17th as our latest to give the direction after the 100% drawings were received.
Okay, thank you so much. Any further questions for her, board? No, thank you.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to add that if we do go with a conditional letter of no objection, we are going to ask Duke Energy to add language expressly acknowledging and approving the transfer agreement under which the district is dedicating land to the county. And then we also, of course, need the final plans to attach, as she mentioned.
Thank you.
Okay. So next we are going to move on to the Hernando County School Board's transfer and dedication of Explorer Boulevard to the county. The transfer agreement is executed between the Hernando County and the school board regarding the transfer of a portion of Explorer Boulevard. The district owns the property which provides access to Explorer K-8 school. The county requests the district to transfer the property to incorporate Explorer Boulevard into the county road system, addressing access and traffic issues and assuming maintenance responsibilities. The transfer is authorized by Section 335.0415 Florida statutes and is deemed in the public interest. The district agrees to transfer subject to conditions, including the county's acknowledgement of existing encumbrances and the provision of perpetual easement for school access. The district's transfer is also contingent on Duke executing a final letter of no objection, which authorizes the transfer. The agreement states that Somerset must construct additional access and a new marquee for the school at no cost to the district, which will be subject to a separate agreement between the developer and the district. The county agrees not to store hazardous materials on the property and to comply with all applicable laws. The developer must release and indemnify the district regarding the access agreement. The county assumes liability for torts related to the roadway after transfer, while the district remains liable for prior incidents subject to sovereign immunity. The county agrees to indemnify the district against claims arising from the county's actions or violations related to the agreement. Indemnification's obligations are ongoing and binding on the county and its successors. Once the county transfer agreement officially goes before the board for execution, the proposed resolution will authorize the superintendent and/or chair to sign all ancillary documents, including closing documents, deed of dedication, closing statement, and any other related documents necessary to complete the closing. The exhibits to the agreement include a legal description of the district property detailing its boundaries and size, title encumbrances, including easements and agreements affecting the property, the Duke letter of no objection, and approved construction plans. This agreement is pending the letter of no objection resolution. We need final plans to attach and a deed of dedication to follow 60 days after the execution of the transfer agreement. To move on to the deed of dedication. The deed of dedication is the district's proposed legal document to dedicate the district property to the county for purposes of public right-of-way and a county collector road. It has been approved by the county, and it would be the document executed and recorded at the closing of the county transfer agreement. It does not need to be signed at the next board meeting. The exhibit included to the deed of dedication is legal description of the land dedicated. Okay. We're going to move on to the termination and release of encroachment agreement. Duke holds easement rights to the district property based on an easement dated April 1st, 1927, and an order of taking. An encroachment agreement dated November 20th, 2006 allowed the district to use part of the property for road access to the school Explorer K-8. Because the district is dedicating this land to the county to be converted into a public right-of-way, the district's right to access this property will be provided by the public right-of-way and Duke's agreement to the construction plans. As a result, the current encroachment agreement is unnecessary, and a termination of the original encroachment agreement with Duke, along with a release of each party's rights, duties, and obligations in accordance with the terms and conditions of the termination and release of encroachment agreement, is necessary. The termination and release of encroachment agreement formally ends the district's rights on the Duke easement area, which is located on the property being dedicated to the county, removes outdated encumbrances from the property, and prevents future claims by Duke against the district under the original encroachment agreement. In the conditional letter of no objection, Duke agrees to replace district access rights with a right-of-way described and depicted in the termination and release of encroachment agreement. The document includes standard provisions on construction, captions, severability, entire agreement, governing law, and authority. We do need confirmation from Duke that they agreed to the termination and release of encroachment agreement, and we need final plans. The document will be executed at the next meeting, but would not be dated or recorded until the construction of the right-of-way is completed and Duke and the developer are prepared to enter into their own encroachment agreement. The exhibit to that legal agreement is a legal description of the district property and right-of-way plans. And moving on to the termination and release of access agreement. The access agreement is dated May 19th, 2015, and allows the developer limited access to the district property in exchange for improvements by the developer. As the district will no longer own this property and the developer's access will be pursuant to the right-of-way, this document is unnecessary and the district and the developer need to enter a termination and release of access agreement. The termination and release of access agreement formally ends the developer's access to the property and any obligations the district had in original access agreement. The agreement officially revokes the developer's right to enter or use school district property under the prior agreement, confirms the agreement no longer owes any the district no longer owes any duties under the earlier agreement, and includes a release, meaning the developer agrees that they have no further claims, demands, or rights arising out of the old agreement. If necessary, the developer must enter into new agreement with the county for access. The agreement requires the developer to indemnify the district, and this document should be recorded at the time that the district transfers the property to the county. Okay. And so we are on to the developer transfer agreement, and that is between the developer and the school board. As consideration for the district dedicating a portion of the Explorer Boulevard to Hernando County and the transfer agreement with the county, Somerset and Acts 88, the developer, known collectively, will transfer portions of their properties to the district that will ultimately incorporate the revised access and queuing for the school. This will ensure that the district will own the underlying property to these improvements instead of having its access on a third party's property. The agreement includes the transfer of both real and intangible property. The real property includes a fee simple title to the property by a special warranty deed, rights of ingress and egress, airspace rights, and subsurface rights, among others. The intangible property encompasses engineering design, plans, permits, and other development-related rights. The developer is required to complete certain improvement work, including extending Explorer Boulevard and adding security features on school board property. The work must comply with all relevant laws and will occur 15 days after the developer completes the improvement work, provided that the district complies with all conditions precedent to closing in the agreement. The agreement will put a time frame on the construction and completion of this work. And if developer fails to meet those deadlines, the district has the right to complete the work and receive reimbursement, plus 10%, or seek any other legal remedies. The developer is also improving the school's drainage by connecting the district's existing drainage retention areas to a new drainage pond on Somerset's property. In connection with the grading and slope alterations that are necessary for the developer's construction of these drainage improvements, the district will be required to obtain a perpetual, non-exclusive drainage easement from Somerset over and upon, across, through, and under a portion of Somerset property for the drainage retention. At closing, Somerset and district will execute and record the drainage easement agreement that is attached to the transfer agreement as Exhibit D. In case of default by the developer under the transfer agreement, the district may terminate the transfer agreement, seek specific performance, or pursue other legal remedies. If the district defaults, the developer may terminate the agreement after providing notice and an opportunity to cure. The agreement includes standard clauses on notice, amendments, governing law, and counterparts with venue in Hernando County. The agreement also gives the district 60 days for an inspection period so the district can conduct all standard due diligence regarding title, survey, and environmental matters. The district will have the right to request the developer cure title, survey, and environmental matters to which the district objects. Once the county transfer agreement officially goes before the board for execution, the proposed resolution will authorize the superintendent and/or chair to sign all ancillary documents, including closing documents, easements, closing statements, and any other related documents necessary to complete the closing. Attached to the transfer agreement with the developer are approved construction plans, legal description of the Acts 88 property, legal description of the Somerset property, and non-governmental entity human trafficking affidavit. I will now go into describing the drainage easement agreement between Somerset Land LLC and the school board attached to the transfer agreement as Exhibit D. The purpose and grant of the easement: Somerset is connecting the district's existing drainage retention area to a new drainage pond on Somerset's property, detailed in an exhibit attached to the agreement. Somerset grants the district a non-exclusive permanent easement over Somerset's property for stormwater drainage to the Somerset pond. Somerset reserves the right to use this property for purposes that do not materially affect the easement rights. The maintenance responsibilities include that Somerset is responsible for maintaining the drainage utilities at its own expense and must not alter them without the district's consent, except for the necessary improvements. If Somerset fails to maintain the utilities, the district can perform maintenance and seek reimbursement for Somerset, with interest accruing on unpaid amounts. Miscellaneous provisions include that the easement does not waive the district's sovereign immunity or liability limits, and the agreement is governed by Florida law, with disputes to be resolved in Hernando County courts. Exhibits to that agreement include depiction of utilities, legal description of district property, and the legal description of the Somerset property. Now, what is has been a subject of discussion among the parties is paragraph 6, which is the timing of improvement work. Now, there has been discussion as to what to tie what is the triggering event for this improvement work. We first began with proposed language, which tied these improvements to the extension of Explorer Boulevard, including the improvements to the school district property. It was set to commence, I believe, within 60 days of the commencement of the agreements, and to be completed within 18 months. We received information from the developer that these improvements were no longer needed, because they have created construction on a roadway and multiple access points to the property. However, and they wanted to tie the improvement work to the development agreement. However, the development agreement is a bit nebulous, and it does not have any kind of deadline for. Well, the improvements are actually, in the development agreement, it states that the improvements are to be completed at the commencement of Phase 1 and prior to any issuance of a certificate of occupancy in Phase 1. Now, the infrastructure of Phase 1 has begun, but no houses have been built. The developer proposed that proposed that the improvements be tied to Phase 3. However, there was discussion as to whether Phase 3 would occur. It's noteworthy to include that the development agreement and the need for improvements was based off of a traffic study that was done in accordance with the methodology that was created by the county, and it was approved by the county, and that was done in August of 2021. So right now, paragraph 6 is up to
Hold on one second. Sorry. Ms. Duval.
Interrupt. You said how there's some concern over Phase 3 not occurring?
Well, these were discussions. They wanted to tie the construction of improvements that we're going to agree to in the transfer agreement between the developer and the school board to Phase 3. But Phase 3, we don't know when and if that will ever occur.
There's no what are the reasons that it wouldn't occur? They give anything?
They have not provided us a reason for if it would not occur, but we don't know when it would occur. And this
doesn't that impact?
It impacts
everything.
It impacts everything. So if Phase 3, if we tie it to Phase 3, then no improvements are going to be completed until Phase 3 occurs. The original understanding was that these improvements were needed based off of a traffic study and that they would commence at the beginning of Phase 1.
And that hasn't happened?
No.
And it hasn't happened for Phase 2?
Well, so the conditional plat of Phase 2 has
Phase
begun.
3? Is that correct?
Phase 3 hasn't even begun.
I know.
Yeah, no. So,
So nothing
yeah,
is...
So we would like, the discussion is, what triggering event do we tie the improvements to, or do we set a timeline as we originally agreed to with 60 days to 18 months for completion?
So what have you all come up with to tie that to?
And that's the discussion for today.
Well, if I may.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Right now, the school continues to operate business as usual. It would continue that way until Phase 3 would happen, if Phase 3 ever happened. But at this moment, we have access points being Bay Drive and Chalmers. Currently, Phase 1 and Phase 2, they do not need Explorer Boulevard for traffic circulation, and we won't need that until the traffic demand exceeds the capacity on Chalmers and Bay Drive. So regardless whether that were to happen or not to happen, we're still guaranteed access, we're still guaranteed business as usual, nothing changes. And then one thing that this does is it takes away our liability by making this.
Go ahead, continue.
It reduces the liability by turning over the properties to Hernando County for a public street. So by doing this, at the end of the day, if something were to happen and the constituent said this is now county access, then what we would do, Somerset would just open up their entrance and we would still continue with our school. So it would not jeopardize anything except benefit us with liability, benefit us with access, not having the queuing going on Northcliffe Boulevard. All in all, it's a win-win when it comes down to the way that it puts us as far as the structure of the school and the parents, the traffic. Is that not correct, Mr. Lipsey?
Yeah, my understanding is that we would proceed as is, as we are today, until such time as the need to connect that traffic circle to Northcliffe by means of Explorer Boulevard is determined. It's not within our purview to make that determination. So because we would be relying presumably on the county, I'm not entirely positive, but I presume we would rely on the county to make that determination. That would be the point at which then all these improvements would happen.
So if there's a concern about the gate and security, in order to keep the safety and security, the county would agree to leave the gate as is, or alternately, Somerset would then allow a gate to be constructed on their property. If the constituents did balk at this being county-owned ever down the road, we would still have Somerset, and that could be put into the paperwork. To make the timeframe more definite, for further definition of Phase 3, these improvements for Explorer Boulevard, we could put something where it would commence within 18 months after construction permits are granted for the next phase, whenever that would be, of Somerset Bay, and be completed within 3 years. So there's things we could do to protect ourselves.
And I have proposed language, which, again, in the original developer agreement, this extension improvements, they're based off of a traffic study that was in 2021. So perhaps we could hinge the improvements on another traffic study. And the proposed language was the determination of need for access and improvement work shall be based on an empirical study, impact data, or investigation conducted by an engineer and approved by Hernando County. Any party may request a study or investigation, the cost of which shall be borne by the developer. Upon the determination that need for the improvement work exists based upon the empirical study, impact data, or the investigation, the developer shall commence the improvement work within a specific amount of time, which is proposed by the developer to be 8 months, unless such deadlines are modified by Hernando County or both parties' approval. Developers shall provide district with at least 90 days prior notice to the commencement of the improvement work. Until commencement of improvement work, Explorer Boulevard and school access shall be operated in the current condition, and the developer shall not make changes which interfere with the school operations.
So at this moment, with Phase 1 and Phase 2, we do not need Explorer Boulevard for traffic circulation. And we won't need it until we did another traffic demand, traffic study, and to see what the traffic demand, if it exceeds the capacity on Chalmer and Bay Drive, then at that point, then we could address that issue. But as long as we had everything legalized and put into our paperwork, then that would never jeopardize the integrity of our access points and us doing, continuing to use the school as usual.
Ms. Duval.
But that needs to be in the agreement, correct?
Yes.
That kind of language, legal language.
Yeah.
And I still don't understand Phase 3. They don't know what's going to happen. You've got 2,300 homes set up for that area. It's zoned for that. I have a hard time trying to figure out what they might be using that for, other than whether it's them. Maybe they'll sell it. Sell it to another developer. That would be my guess. If they don't have a clear picture of what they're doing or willing to put a timeline with it, something's going to happen.
But either way,
But those 2,300 homes are going to go in there one way or another, whether it's that development or another. Where does that put us in terms of our legal responsibilities and not having a clear plan of what we're going to be doing, able to do?
well, would that not continue with Somerset putting in the legal verbiage that they would allow the gate to be constructed on their property? That would still continue to be access points to the school.
I can't speak to that. I'm going to.
And also, if they sold the land, whoever acquired the land would have to honor this, correct?
No, not. we would have to tie that into the agreement.
Well, that
and we
needs
would
to
have
be
to
in
modify
there.
all the agreements if we were see, that was the problem with the phase 3. So, it's like with the improvements, what if in the future the traffic necessitates the improvements, but phase 3 hasn't been constructed? But then in these documents, we've tied the improvements to phase 3. So we have no recourse to get these improvements if they're needed in the future. That was the problem.
Mr. Johnson? Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I would like to see the security gate remain in place until such time as Explorer Boulevard is worked on to make it a complete access road. Second part, I think, Mrs. Duval, if I remember correctly, and Ms. Lipsky would know better, there is no concurrency, as I understand it, for phase 3 to be developed at this point. If that's the case, they would have to do a traffic study and come back to us to assure that, A, they could build the 2,300 homes, which would, in today's formula, a 0.3 would be about 700 students had a place to go. So I think the concurrency would have to be in place for 2,300. Even if they sold the develop to a different developer, there would have to be some kind of concession made. So I don't think that is necessarily an issue, because am I right about the concurrency? There is none for phase 3?
That's correct.
You are correct.
So in order to build the other homes out, I would imagine the developer currently would have to sell 90% plus of the homes in phases 1 and 2, and then mitigate the damages, at which time they'd have to do another study for the traffic. So if the traffic study is required at the commencement of phase 3, I think we're protected. And I don't see a problem, as long as the security for the school is in place until such time as that road becomes an access road.
Which it would be.
Mr. Lipsy? Do you- Your microphone, Ms. Duval.
What I'm looking at, do you think by putting all of the restrictions into this current legal document that it will be more difficult for this developer to sell that piece of property?
No. With the access points from Bay on the Deltona side and Chalmers on the Mariner side, the cross street going below the school where that new circle is proposed, that's already in place. So that he has access to get to his property. He does not need Explorer Boulevard to get to those pieces of property. What the county, I believe, is requiring is the access from on Explorer Boulevard if he goes into phase 3, because they always want multiple entrances and exits
Right.
to communities.
Then,
So-
then why are they not wanting to put any kind of a timeline?
I think the
phase
problem,
3.
I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess he has phase 1 and 2 where not a single stick of wood has gone into the ground to build these homes. He's got a huge investment from 1995 until now, 30 years, where he could not build for different reasons. And now he's to the point, I don't know what his financial condition is. I don't know if he's running into a cash flow problem. But if that was me, I'd be a little worried about it. So if we give him a chance to build homes and be stable, he can sell those and then move into the other areas, which I think is the intent.
But then you have the concurrency problem.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
At this moment, well, in the past 3.5 years, from 2022 to 2026, almost 4 years actually, Somerset proceeded with the other access points, being the Bay Drive, Chalmers, and during that time, they expended millions of dollars to do that. So they put that money in there in order to get to where we are now. This has been going on since 2006, if not before that. So basically, the school board in 2006, we had the responsibility at that time to provide access to this piece of property, which is 450 acres off of the Explorer Boulevard. So we've been going through this for a long, long time. And there's a lot of benefits to us being able to see this through and make it happen, as well as for Somerset. But I think we could ask Mr. Taylor if he would like to come up and speak on Phase 3, if you wouldn't mind.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
while Mr. Taylor's approaching, just to remind the board, the executive summary for this indicated that Kristen Kowaleski of Gray Robinson, outside counsel representing the school district, is also a part of the presentation. Ms. Kowaleski has been listening to the conversation. She is connected via Teams, and so if there are specific questions that perhaps Ms. Mokler and I are unable to answer, she has been listening to the conversation and is able to address other questions you may have.
Thank you.
The only question I have, which I think has been answered, is the security for the school as it is now. And if that gate is up until such time as Explorer Boulevard is changed and reconfigured, that would solve the problem as far as I'm concerned as to the security for the existing school. So I don't think that places a burden necessarily on the developer. I would like also, Ms. Moser, to see a time frame, but it seems like it's almost impractical to tie it to a time frame, so it has to be an event. And the only event that makes sense is when the shovel goes in the ground for Phase 3, or when they go to get that approved. At that point, require an additional traffic study, and I think that makes sense. And maybe put a time frame at that point after the traffic study. Have so many days or months to start improving Explorer Boulevard.
And I think
Ms. Rodriguez.
I think that's where we were within 18 months after we were to put the shovel in the ground. We would do the 18 months after construction permits are granted for that next phase, which would be Phase 3 of Somerset Bay, and then to be completed by 3 years. Mr. Taylor, tell me if you think that sounds reasonable.
I'm sorry if I can just interject really quickly. I just wanted to say that I think that, tying it to Phase 3 rather than omitting Phase 3 and just keeping it as a traffic study, as that was originally what the development agreement now between the county and the developer is based off of, what the original need was based off of. And so I think that a traffic study, and just saying that it's going to be based off of a traffic study and the proposed language, would satisfy the requirement and be a good triggering event, as that's what was originally agreed to between the county and the developer. And that would also perhaps allow for the in case another developer, there was a successor, to come along for Phase 3, because we don't know when Phase 3 is going to happen. And so a traffic study that can be requested at any time.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Taylor. I am the manager for AX LLC. Also, just as way of history, I am also the general partner for Mark 425 and the general partner for Luke 1248. All of those companies have owned this property at one time or another. It is originally Mark 425 purchased it. That was me and my wife. Luke 1248 was me, my wife, and my 2 children. Acts 88 is me, my wife, my 2 children, and a charitable organization that owns part of the ownership of that. So I've been involved with this since 2012, working through these issues since that time. I'll try to answer the questions that have been posed as best that I remember them. I was writing down some other things out back. The biggest question that has been asked is, why now? The reason now is because in 2022, we had an amended agreement with this group. Most of you weren't on the board at the time. I do know Ms. Duvall was on the board in 2015 when we did the original agreement that said we could have access to the property because the school board owned it. Then in 2022, when we gained a joint venture partner, who was Somerset Lands, Ron Bastier sitting in the back, and he can certainly come up and speak if you need him to, came on board. They started to get the conditional plat through the county, got as far as submitting the construction plans, and Duke Energy said, wait a minute, we don't think you should do this. Even after they had said in 2015, conceptually, in our opinion, that it could be done. We didn't feel like it was necessary to go to legal at that time, so we chose to try to negotiate, compromise, do whatever we could to make Duke happen. But unfortunately, as that related to that in 2022 and beyond, your staff got a little reticent about trying to approve much of anything because they didn't want to enter you into a lawsuit with Duke. And I understand that. And I think that was probably a good choice looking back on it. However, that was in 2022. If you look at your calendar, we're almost to 2026, and that's been 3.5 years. In the last year, we've negotiated with Duke, and the Board of County Commissioners has been very helpful in that, and they have agreed to drop their opposition to that in exchange for us doing a few things for them as well. We have to pay for part of their relocation of a particular pole and some other things. All right. The problem was that we now have a very strong building economy, and we're sitting there with a lot of dirt that our family's owned for a long time, and our joint venture partners invested a bunch of money into, and we can't build anything because the development agreement said we're supposed to go build Explorer Boulevard. So we went back to the county and said, look, we're stuck. Can we build Chalmers and Bay Drive and access some of the property? And they said yes. So we did that. And Mr. Bastier and his partners back in the back have spent millions of dollars doing that. And Mr. Johnson, you're probably correct in that after you spend a lot of money, it's really hard to go spend a lot of money that you don't need to spend right now. But why now? That's the question. Now is because we have all the parties not only aligned, we have them all aligned in concept. Duke says, go ahead. The county says, go ahead. You guys say, go ahead. And this is the third time you will say, actually the fourth time you will say, go ahead. It was in 2006 you said, go ahead. In 2015 you said, go ahead. In 2022 you said, go ahead. This is now 2025. It's time to go ahead. So that's the reason that we need to put this off. Now let's talk a little bit about when that would be, and I'm thankful for Ms. Mockler. There's scientific and technical issues that come into play, and then there's stuff that we conceive. We can create all kinds of fear if we want to do that. But the reality of it is we are approved for phase one. If you've been out there, it's built for the most part, okay? But this has also caused some issues with our ultimate buyer of the property, who is a home builder, who hasn't closed on some documents yet because he's waiting to make sure we're trying to get this all squared away. So phase one's done. Phase two has been conditionally platted by the county, which means it's now in the permitting process. The construction plans are being developed, and we're moving to phase two. There is no doubt that phase three, because if you look at that picture that's up there, you'll see that more than half of the property has not been developed. There is no doubt that we're moving to another phase. That's just going to happen. Exactly when that's going to be is going to be dependent on when phase one and phase two are completed, and we cannot tell you that. I've been in this community a long time, and I've developed a reputation in this community that's different than somebody coming from out of town. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you a bunch of stories, and I'm not going to threaten to sue you, and I'm not going to. That's just who we are. So the deal is, we don't know exactly. So what triggers it? The contract that was on the agenda today says that from the time you sign the agreement, 6 days after that, we'll start work. I just like anybody to look me in the eye and say that's reasonable. 6 days. And it'll be completed in 180 days, which I'd like for you to look at your staff and say that's reasonable, because it's not.
That's the part we need to amend.
The beg pardon?
That needs to be amended.
Yeah, so that's the issue we're talking about.
And that's what we're talking about.
Paragraph 6, page 5. All right. Our suggestion is that we take it out of our hands, and frankly, your hands, and we put it in the hands of the county engineer, who will say when there's not enough traffic circulation available to build another house, Somerset, you will stop. Just like when you tell us there's not another seat in a classroom to put a kid in, you will tell us, because that's your purview, that's where you guys operate, you will stop. So to me, the traffic makes the most sense. We've been going back and forth for the last week or so trying to figure out what alternatively might work. We've got some language involving phase 3 that might work, but we really think the traffic study is where it would be, because when the traffic exceeds, and somebody asked the question to us as we've been discussing this, where are we talking about traffic? We're not talking about traffic on Chalmers and Bay Drive. We are talking, when you do a traffic study, it is more global than that. We're talking about Deltona, we're talking about Mariner, the traffic impacts on those roads and other places. It's not just the roads that are close by to this thing. It spreads out. I've got an engineer. I'm going to let him talk in a second because I've gone too long. He can explain the traffic study to you much better than I can. But it's not just the little neighborhood that we're talking about. We're talking about traffic impacts on lots of things. So when we get to that point, the county is going to say, Mr. Developer, you have to do improvements on those roads. So we may have to do improvements on Deltona. We may have to do improvements on Mariner. I don't know what the traffic study is going to say, but that's what it does. We don't, another question that was, well, what happens if we go away? Can I tell you something? My dream is that I go away. Because what I want to do is sell this to Mr. Bastier sitting back there in the thing, and then he, who is a very honorable man, by the way, also takes it over and runs forward with it. I don't think he's going anywhere, but if we keep stalling so long, we may get somebody like the folks you've dealt with the last month in here before it's over with, and you don't want to deal with folks like that again. Okay, I'm just here to I think I'm here to tell you about that. You don't need me to remind you about that. So I would just tell you, we have no issue at all to adding to the agreement that it can be assignable, that whoever we assign it to takes. Chairman, that's your question. To me, I'm in the real estate business. That'd be silliness for us to say that it couldn't be assigned. I mean, that's just normal standard legal language. Of course it can be assigned. The final thing I want to say before I turn it over to my engineer is that if you go back to slide 16, could you do that, please? Yep. On slide 16 that you're looking at now, in blue, we own it. You have operated the access to Explorer Boulevard on our property since the day it was built. We have had no issues with any of that. It's been operated just fine. And if until that day when the traffic study says we got to build something, you guys can keep building and dealing with that until the day we do that. And we have a 20-year history, I think, at this point, that's pretty good, that says we hadn't messed up with you guys. I'm not an attorney. I'm married to one, but I'm just going to ask, I guess a rhetorical question. What you have on the blue piece of property right there is an easement. It's not very specific. It just says easement. If I wanted to run cattle on that blue piece of property and I wanted to open fences all over the places to do that, the question I would have for my attorney and your attorney is, could I do that? And my guess is the answer is probably yes. Because all you have is an easement across the blue area. We need to get that squared away. You should not operate, and I think hopefully your attorneys will tell you this, you shouldn't operate across a piece of property that's an easement. In 2006, you couldn't negotiate that with a prior owner. He wouldn't allow it. You currently have the current owners in the room, and you ought to square that up. As a citizen of this county and taxpayer, I think it's not good for you to operate a school across an easement that you don't own.
All right, thank you. I think Ms. Duval had a question first.
I was just going to go back to our attorney and ask for an opinion on this timeline with Phase 3. What could be done to alleviate concerns that the board might have with not having something in place?
To have some sort of triggering event that's not arbitrarily chosen. It's also difficult to, base it off of, it's difficult for, I would, I guess, have to defer to the board attorney, but I think that the board needs to make a decision that is in the best interest of the school district. And you have to base that off of something. And, if you base it off of, we're going to do this when Phase 3 occurs, what is that based off of? Or, a certain number of homes and that are maybe a certain number of homes in Phase 2 would work. But, again, it's not really based off of something concrete. But those are my thoughts. I'll maybe defer to Kristen Kowaleski, also the attorney that's been handling this. And she also drafted the documents and helped draft the documents. So if she has any input.
So are we suggesting to base it off of a study, like a traffic study, right? Correct? That's what you're suggesting. And they're wanting to leave it as Phase 3, or they're okay with having it as
No, Madam Chair, may I
traffic study,
make a
right?
couple
So
things?
what are we arguing
Okay.
then? in
We're
this?
not really arguing
Okay.
the point at all.
Perfect.
So when we cannot use Explorer Boulevard, we had to update our traffic study with the county. So the one she's referring to is not the current one. We had to update it to include connection to Chalmers. So we specifically went in and said, not because of the school district, but because of Duke, we can't do the improvements to Explorer. So we updated the traffic study, convinced them to build the Chalmers, took Explorer out until we could finally get to the point where it could be a public roadway. We can't do any improvements on it currently, but when it becomes a public roadway, we can do all the improvements. So a traffic study's done each step of the way, each phase, and whether y'all want to call it future phases of development as assigned or just the next traffic study that's approved by Hernando County and the development agreement with the developer, the traffic study is the key. It is how the trips are disputed or distributed into the community, and it will be the trigger when Explorer needs to be built. The fourth connection we have is to a road on the south side of the property that doesn't provide near the benefits that Explorer Boulevard does. And if you look at what we've been doing for the last several years, we've been pursuing y'all to build it. So it's not like we're backing away from it. The thing that got us was we already spent the money to update the traffic study and build Chalmers. That's built, in place, connected. We're putting it in operation as we speak. The traffic circle that's built there is for Explorer Boulevard to connect to. And we fully feel Phase 3 or whatever future phase comes along is going to happen that's going to trigger that traffic study saying you now got to do those improvements. But with Phase 1 and 2 built, approved, Chalmers built, connected, Bay Drive built, connected, we simply were asking the district to allow us to use the traffic study to trip the generation needs to trigger the improvements versus some specific date like 6 days from the date of the effective, the agreement's effective. We've also discussed it with your staff in great detail that this needs to be scheduled around summer months so that most of the improvements that we're doing on campus, it's not done during your normal school time.
Appreciate that.
So if we're going to schedule a summer, we also need the time to do that improvement with those summers kind of built into that future phase. So we're fine with the traffic study being the trigger. No issues with that. And then we want to be able to commence and complete it within 18 months from that trigger being approved, which will be with the next phase of development. The traffic study is not going to change from the one I've already done until we have more homes to trigger additional cars, similar to our concurrency analysis we do with Jim. He's not going to trigger our need to do a prop share agreement if we don't have another phase of development coming in. But if Phase 3 comes in today and y'all are short, we got to do a prop share agreement or meet concurrency requirements. Same with traffic.
Cliff, you talk about something being, a traffic study being triggered. What actually triggers it?
The new homes.
How
The
m-
next
is there
phase of
is there a
development.
number that's attached to?
Oh, how many? The next conditional plat, similar to y'all use for school concurrency, triggers it.
Okay.
And we could, depending on how she wants to write it. We don't have to tie it to phase 3. I don't know if it was Ray or who with staff kind of said, well, what if y'all went to phase 4 next? I said, well, we wouldn't have to build a road. I said, that's stupid. So it's the next phase of development.
Next,
Will
Okay, and then
require
Ms.
a conditional
Rodriguez.
plat,
The
and
next
it will
conditional plat.
require, yeah, and it will require a traffic study with the conditional plat to both get our school concurrency and our transportation concurrency.
Okay, Ms. Rodriguez.
Is it fair to say that, Mr. Taylor, your group has been more than patient because with the school district from many, 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 many years ago, and we're basically consummating agreements that started back in 2006, which by doing that and honoring this, which should have been honored a long time ago, it would remove any conflicts and eliminate potential litigation with us. So you have probably been one of the most patient men that I know, because most businessmen that have went this many years would not have just sat on their hands, so to speak. And I think that you have shown a lot of grace, and I know that you have a lot of money out on this. So you're just looking for this to be finalized as it should have been a long time ago. Is that not correct?
Well, if that was a question, I would just say that we feel as if we have compromised in any way, shape, or form that we can. And we feel like we've done a pretty admirable job in that regard.
All right, Mr. Johnson.
I feel, Mrs. Rodriguez, that the school board is not the fault here. I think it's all been Duke Energy who has been stalling this and not working with the community to see a project through. I mean, thank you for the clarification. We say phase 3, you say the next conditional plat. That works. That gives, you know, and I would even stipulate, I appreciate the fact that you want to do the construction over the summer, because that makes it easier on the school. I'm sure you could arrange it where that road is semi-functional in the fall or whatever school year that is, even if it doesn't get completed until the springtime. To me, that's...
Campus activities for queuing areas and stuff.
Yeah.
Coordinate with district staff for that.
Yeah, I understand that. I don't have any problem with that. I think that solves your problem. It solves our problem, because we don't want that elephant in the room again, that other project where it was just indefinite forever and ever and ever. So knowing that we can't get a time certain to have a triggering event like another conditional plat, to me, is perfectly reasonable and should be done. That gives everybody a time frame, in a sense, where we all know what's going on. And you're right, because you still have the problem with concurrency to deal with at that point. So
We were thrown during all of that process. We were thrown in the midst of when Duke raised their head at that time in 2022, the school board, the district staff got concerned because of that, and we backed off. So at that time, we were no longer doing plans, no longer looking at anything. We just basically said we're stepping back because Duke had strife and they weren't seeing eye to eye with wanting to move forward. So we did step back. So I think all in all, together, it has been a problem for the developer, whether it be us, whether it be Duke, whatever the stronghold has been, it's been there. So at this moment, if we have the ability to release that and we have the ability to let this development go forward, and we can do it safely for the best interest of the district, as well as the county commissioners, Duke, and the school board, and we can let them proceed, I think that it's finally time. I think that we have strung them along, not intentionally and not because of us as an entity, but all government entities, everything, because no one could get everything together. And now, since everyone has their ducks in a row, I think it's time to go ahead and let you proceed and move forward, because you've been waiting on this for probably more years than anyone I've known.
All right, let's move on to the last question with Ms. Duvall, and then we'll wrap this up.
So, Mr. Taylor, Cliff, you're willing to work with our legal counsel on additional language that will satisfy and resolve the problem with Phase 3 coming on board. Is that correct?
Yeah, let me take this and just say that what I hear you saying, and I'm sure your staff is doing better notes than this, a conditional plat will trigger a traffic study. The traffic study, when the traffic exceeds the current concurrency, because that's, you all talk about school concurrency, the county also deals with traffic concurrency. It's the same. So when it exceeds the same concurrency, or exceeds concurrency, that we will institute the construction within a certain period of time. And I would suggest 18 months after that traffic study that we would commence, and 3 years after that, it would be completed.
Ms. Mockler, are you okay with that? Not to put you on the spot,
Yeah, I'll
but
have to,
generally speaking,
I'll have to discuss this. I'm sorry, I can't provide a definitive answer right now.
It is my feeling that we can work this out with staff, just like we've worked out just about everything, or tried to work out just about everything we've worked for many, many years through.
using what you just said, you will meet and get this finished so
Or meet
that
in the middle.
Yes.
we are now able to move forward if we get the correct language, right?
Yes.
We absolutely commit to that.
And if I can get Kristen Kowaleski's opinion as well.
Okay. Mr. Myers would
Sorry,
like
yes,
to.
no,
Okay.
I'm here. No, I'm listening. No, I definitely think we can come with some language, and I think this has been helpful. I think we kind of wanted some of the board input on the triggering language because it was something that we had gone back and forth with, but it seems like everybody's along the same page, and I don't anticipate any issues being able to finalize the language with Mr. Taylor on this paragraph for this document.
Thank you.
And can we add if the 18 months isn't, we do it during summer, that we know that, okay,
That language.
you know what I'm saying? Like, I want them to be like, we have to get it done in 18 months or in the middle of school.
All right, Mr. Myers?
Yeah, I mean, just a couple other things that Mr. Taylor mentioned, I think it'd be important to include, obviously, the successors, or the assignability in the event, it's sold, that needs to be included. Also, the point about that easement, and that blue area bothered me when you brought that up, that we need to nail that down as well. Because the fact that, the district was granted an easement for 20 years, it doesn't mean it'll be granted for the next 5 years. So we have to get a commitment there as well.
And I would like to say that I appreciate Duke willing to work with us now. I know management and things change over the years, so I do appreciate your willingness to get this completed as well. And then Mr. Pender?
Does that question, well, let me say, I know there's been a lot of discussion. I know this has been going on a long time, so I appreciate this moving to this place that we're in now. Would that blue area would that easement be solved when we sign the agreement? Would the easement issue be solved when we sign it? Or
No,
And if
that would
I
become
may,
board
that's right.
property. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Kristen.
No, that's right. As the transfer agreement is drafted now, that would not resolve the issue until the closing, which we currently have stated as, I think, 15 days after completion of construction. Until then, this would still be an easement. So just mainly signing the agreement wouldn't be enough. It would have to be after closing when we acquire title to the property.
I mean, if the board's okay with that, it's the board decision. So if the board wants just clarification for moving forward from this point, does the board want, when the final language is drafted, for us to bring that language back to a workshop to discuss the language?
I would feel comfortable with both of our attorneys, looking it over, and as long as they felt that it was in good standing and it was a benefit for the district and all the verbiage was in place, I would feel confident in them.
Mr. Johnson?
I could see it being brought back to a meeting for a vote, as Mrs. Rodriguez said. Mrs. Mockler will have reviewed it. Our attorney will have reviewed it. Their attorney will have reviewed it. And I think we can put stock in what they all say. They all know what the agreement states.
So we're going to go do the agreement. We're going to bring it back to a board meeting, put it on a board agenda. If you have questions, you can pull it at that time.
Correct.
Okay.
Everyone okay with that?
The only thing I want to state is the construction timeline. I know that over the summer is ideal, but with any development, with any construction, sometimes it takes a little bit more than that. I just want the board to be aware and understand that I think that they will do their due diligence and their very best to do it during the time that the school's closed. But if it happens to be some when we're open, I just want to know that that's not going to be a problem.
I don't want to ruin all the great will that we're listening to right now,
But I also want to cover that.
So that the roadway construction itself from North Cliff to the roundabout cannot be done during the summer. No way, shape, or form.
So I
Way
wanted
too
to
long
cover
one.
this so that they
Many more
understand.
months associated with that.
Yes.
But in the construction schedule, we're going to peel out the pieces that directly impact the school campus.
That's what I was talking
So
about.
there's the queuing area, there's sidewalks, there's security fencing that y'all talked about. We can secure and put the campus back in order during the summer. The rest of the project will be going on and not completed in that short period of time.
I just wanted clarification
yeah.
so that it didn't
Yeah.
get,
All I'm worried about is
Okay.
keeping our schools safe. I don't care about
Any further
Northcliffe
comments?
traffic.
Madam Chair, if I could just
Sure.
add one thing. So sometimes they say when you've sold it, shut up.
They do say.
But I would just tell you, this is an example. Our agreement as we currently have it doesn't say anything about what timeframes we would do any construction. But we've agreed with your staff over the last 2 or 3 years that it makes sense for everybody to do it during the summer. Now, they may have asked for that, but we could have said no. We haven't said no, we said yes. And I just want to encourage you to think that through. The second thing we would request is, I believe you have a meeting on January 20, there's one on the 13th and the 27th. We would request that this be agended for the 27th so that with the holidays and so forth, we anticipate taking a little time to get through all this with attorneys, if you've ever dealt with that, so that we could maybe have this on the final agenda for the 27th.
and we want to thank you for not putting cattle on the property.
Yes.
Not till this afternoon.
Mr. Pinder, is that possible for the 27th?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, we're going to take a 5-minute recess at 3:16 p.m.
I just wanted to thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for the time.
Thank you.
All right, we will reconvene at 3:22 p.m. Moving on to item number 2, 263491, presentation and information on the option of a participation agreement with the Florida Education Health Trust. It's been a long meeting before you. I apologize. Thank you guys for coming. You may start.
Hi, Board Chair, Board members, Superintendent Pender. I'm Matt Goldrick, Director of Labor Relations and Professional Standards, and I have the FLET here on the agenda today for you to consider. Just to put it in kind of a timeline, Mr. Pender bumped into the idea of FLET this summer when I think there were three member districts. It's caught steam, it's growing incredibly. Point of agenda order, I've given you a PowerPoint because we slightly changed the PowerPoint. Many of the slides are the same, but there was even a new member added, so we adjusted that. So it's something that I think can help the district save money and explore being self-insured in a very safe way. This comes to you in the timeline that for 2026, we've already agreed that we're going to continue with Blue Cross Blue Shield. You guys did that back in September. But this is really looking and planning for 2027 and using 2026 to do that. So if this goes well, we'll continue this discussion next month in a board meeting with this participation agreement, which these guys, I'm going to turn this over to Ted, and he's going to tell you all about FLET.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with you all here today. Board Chair Hawkins, Superintendent Pender, and board members. I'll just say, as a former superintendent, that last session brought back memories for me, working through those types of issues. It's always a heavy load when you're trying to make great decisions right for your district and for your school district. So thank you for what you do. With me today, I would like to introduce briefly before I jump in, Mr. Joe Albritton with Avail Analytics, works inside of Fleet as our program manager. He and his team do a phenomenal job. We'll talk a little more about their role here in just a few moments. We have Mr. Darren Bryan back here, also with Avail, and Mr. Kramer Royal serves as the Chief of Staff. And so as we wrap up our presentation here in just a few minutes, any and all of us will be available to answer your questions about Fleet. So Fleet is the Florida Educator Health Trust. I'm going to just skip past these couple statistic slides because there's no surprise to anyone, obviously, that health insurance costs, along with costs across the board, have skyrocketed in recent years. But Fleet was established after and on the concept of the original program FSHIP that was formed in 2009 under the Florida School Board's Insurance Trust under FSBIT, which, as you all know, lives under FSBA. Fleet was moved and renamed under the FADS Association, the Florida Association of District School Superintendents, so that all school districts that wanted to join would be able to join because obviously not everybody was a member of FSBIT. Only a certain number of districts are members of FSBIT. And it was important to be able to have any district that joined to be able to have representation as a voting member on the Fleet board. So the sole purpose of Fleet is to bring together, really for the first time. You know, you think about the state of Florida, as large as it is, never having had a vehicle to bring school districts together, to bring buying power, to bring costs down, to bring and drive efficiency within health insurance programs, right? You know, we talk about as we're going through our budget planning process and we're adopting a budget, we always look at those salary and benefit lines as the two largest drivers of our overall budget. So it makes sense, right, to have an entity, in this case, a Fleet, that lives under the Superintendents Association to try to put school districts back in control together to help drive down costs and bring program health to individual school districts. So what is Fleet? Fleet is a nonprofit, again, under FADS, and it's proving to be the sustainable savings solutions to bringing value to districts at a level not seen before, as districts standalone, as you're aware, are really shopping on their own and trying to get the best deal. Our program brings a tremendous amount of transparency to the overall program and the health insurance spend. As you all are aware, as you've looked at programs year over year and you look at renewals year over year for your health insurance spend, a lot of times it's hard to make sense, right, of what costs are there. Why are costs accelerating? What are the drivers that are accelerating costs? Who's making what? And so Fleet brings all of that into complete clarity for school districts and provides a transparent way forward. Mr. Goldrick just mentioned just a minute ago, this was one of the slides that was changed. Okaloosa County School District out in the Panhandle with their 3,500 or so employees voted to join last night, matter of fact. And so we added them to the list of member districts. Suwannee will be voting tonight to join. And so of the original 3 members that were part of Fleet, you can see the districts that have joined since the original 3, now representing over 37,000 school district employees that are members of, or have districts rather, that are members of Fleet as a trust. We're engaged across the state with 25 or so other districts, from the tip of the Panhandle all the way down to Monroe. We are crisscrossing the state and having conversations with school boards, with insurance and benefits committee members, with superintendents and their cabinet members about what Fleet is and what solutions Fleet might be able to bring to the table for their district. So let's talk about a few bullet points here, and I'm going to try to go briefly through these, but it's very important for me that we get into the Q&A time, because I think that's really where you'll have your questions answered about why Fleet might be a great fit for the Hernando County School District. I already mentioned earlier that transparency is huge. This is a program that, as a former super, I would have loved to have had, because it puts everything in a very clear lane. Everybody is dealt with, and anybody that comes to any vendor that works with Fleet, let me say that, has to operate in a complete space of transparency and accountability. The economy of scale buying power. It makes sense to you if I say, if Hernando County is going to, I'm just use transportation terms here. If you put in an order for 50 bus tires, but Polk County is putting in an order for 500, who's going to get the best buying power on the cost per tire? Well, the same is true in the health insurance arena, especially with around those items like commodities with your prescription drug market. Joe often says that amoxicillin is amoxicillin, right? More people together bringing stronger buying power. Financial stability through minimizing year-to-year volatility. Every district, whether you're fully insured or self-insured, experiences volatility. You see that in your fully insured world currently through your rate renewals. You have a bad year, your renewal looks a lot worse, right? The same is true in the self-insured world. However, within Fleet, there are a lot of controls, a lot of levers that get applied to bring a stability and a reduced volatility so that you don't have those shocks year over year when you go to your renewal. The 11208 compliance verification as a self-insured district, if you were to move in this arena, because all of our districts inside of Fleet are either self-insured or transitioning to self-insured, there's compliance reports that have to be done with OIR each year, the Office of Insurance Regulation. That all happens within Fleet for our school districts. Sharing in a dividend program through risk sharing with individual districts, individual district protection rather. We may or may not have a chance to dive into that, but suffice it to say, many of you all are probably familiar with stop-loss insurance. It's basically an insurance that you carry as a part of a self-insured program to insure your catastrophic interest or your loss to protect your fund balance, if you will, by having that in place. Well, stop-loss insurance, traditionally, when you pay that stop-loss premium, there's not an opportunity to recover any of those dollars when you have that policy. In our program, there'd be a process by which you could actually recover a portion of your proceeds back to the district in years where you had great years. Stop-loss premium reduction and stabilization. This is an area where, again, tied to the risk-sharing program, it's very important to districts as we talk about self-insured programs to school districts that haven't been self-insured in a very long time, or if ever. They get concerned about stability and stabilization. We will talk more with you all about what that looks like and how that looks. Reduce district procurement and operational costs. One of the things that districts deal with, especially in districts where you're not staffed up to be self-insured, is that there's all these different procurements that get run. There's the bids, RFPs for stop loss, for your PBM, for your ASO, for your administrative services only contract, for your health insurance carrier. All those procurements and all those recommendations and all that vetting gets done inside of Fleet for our member districts. So who is eligible to join Fleet? All 67 districts theoretically are eligible to join Fleet now that it lives under FADS. School districts that are self-insured are willing to become self-insured. And then finally, we like to work with districts that are wanting to take control of and harness the control of and take back control of their health insurance programs to be able to have and put forward the best product possible for their employees and their families. So how to participate? The process looks a little different for every district kind of leading up to this point. I mentioned, school board workshops, meetings with Insurance and Benefits Committee folks, going in front of unions in some cases. But it all evolves down to and arrives at the point where a school board entertains a participation agreement with Fleet. And so the participation agreement would come by recommendation through your superintendent to you all as a board, and then you all would vote to move forward. Think of that as your letter of intent to move forward to joining Fleet. Once that is passed and adopted, then we bring that back to the Fleet board, and the Fleet board is made up of superintendents or their designees that are members of the trust. And so in the hypothetical, if Hernando joined Fleet, Superintendent Pender or his designee would become a voting member in the management and operation of Fleet as an entity. We would establish a district transition plan with you all to crosswalk what it looks like to go from fully insured where you currently are into that self-insured world with Fleet 1/1 of 2027, as Mr. Goldrick mentioned earlier. At that point, you become an active member of Fleet 1/1 of 27 once that crosswalk takes place. And then, as I said earlier, each superintendent or designee or becomes a trustee on the Fleet board. So what can a district expect? And that's really what it boils down to. As we go across the state, districts want to know, board members want to know, especially CFOs want to know what's going to happen for us and why is this of value? Where's the return on investment? So you all being currently a fully insured district, we have longitudinal data, historical data that shows you're going to save 7 to 12% right out the gate with your health insurance spend. And you say, well, how can you say that so with such assurance? Really, two things drive that 7 to 10%. Number one is carrier profit. Carrier profit is stripped out when you're going into a self-insured environment, and also you're not paying a premium tax on your fully insured plan that you do not have to pay, you no longer pay inside the self-insured environment. One of the things we're going to be bringing to you all is industry-leading assistance with data analysis and application. You're going to have access to a pasture full of data that you did not have access to before as a fully insured plan. You are paying a carrier to carry 100% of the risk. You have access to very little of the data. As a self-insured district, you have a lot of access to the control of the data, and being able to have access and control of that data will help you drive and make decisions that benefit your employees and your overall financial outlook in your plan. Wellness support, we've got some great things going on in the wellness arena with districts that are wanting to operate or have school district operated wellness centers or clinics for their employees and their families that we can talk more about should you all decide to come to Fleet. And then performance audits of contract effectuation that are delivered by the agent broker to ensure the ROI and protect the district. That's one of the things that Mr. Albritton and his team do is they have, and I don't believe currently you all have a formalized relationship with a traditional agent or broker, but we call those folks contract effectuators inside of Fleet, and those contract effectuators are audited annually by our group through Avail to make sure that they are doing for you and providing for you the services that are outlined in their Fleet scope of services for you all as a district. 5 unique Fleet facts. Try saying that fast five times. We do know that a properly managed self-insurance program inside of Fleet will always net savings over time when compared to fully insured district programs. It's just the mathematical output that exists inside a self-insured arrangement. You have so many other options to you as a board. Independently self-insured districts also gain. That's not you all right now, so we won't talk about that particularly. But I will skip down to number 5, and this is very important because this is a school district program under FADS for school districts. We are not a vendor. We are a service. We are a service through FADS, just like their member services under FSBA, and we operate as a complete fiduciary on your side of the table and making sure that you're getting the best access and leverage to the market is absolutely possible. Nobody inside Fleet receives any type of remuneration from any of the major carriers like Florida Blue, United, Aetna. There's a PEPM, a per employee per month fee for your members that are on your health insurance plan that gets paid as a flat fee to Fleet, just like if you were a member of FSBIT. Not sure if you're a member of FSBIT or not, but if you were, you pay a flat fee, and then FSBIT acts as a fiduciary on your behalf to get the best deal possible for you. These are our operational components and partners inside of Fleet. FADS, obviously, I mentioned, is the sponsoring organization. Fleet is that sub-organization, just like FSBIT is under FSBA. I serve as the executive director. This is exciting work for me as an executive director because while Mr. Albritton is wearing us out, running us across the state with all these appointments to speak with good folks like you all, as a former superintendent and sitting on finance and benefits, insurance and benefits committees for more than 25 years, there's been a need for this, quite honestly, for a very long time. There's been a need for this to be able to bring districts together to experience economy of scale buying power. Avail Analytics provides the program management and the checks and balances, best practices that I spoke about briefly, making sure that everything from an auditor general compliance is taken care of and that the district stands ready for any audit that comes. We all love audits, right? And then contract management for vendors that work inside the Fleet space are also vetted through Avail Analytics and Mr. Albritton and his partners. Alliant is our Fleet broker. We have one broker that serves all of the Fleet member districts. Fleet, the actuarial services and the funding recommendations that come to districts to adopt for their overall plan year over year also come through Alliant. They place the stop-loss insurance, the PBM, the Pharmacy Benefit Management Program, and houses the data warehouse. So inside of Fleet, traditionally, I'm going to say in your case, for example, as a fully insured district, your data, all of your data and your granular data specifically is housed, I believe you are with Florida Blue. Is that correct? Yes. Correct. So at Florida Blue, they have all your data. Inside of Fleet, the data warehouse is owned by the member districts. And so all of your data comes together and is funneled into your portion of that data warehouse that you have access to at a granular and genuine level at any point in time for you to be able to get that pristine data out of that warehouse. That's unlike any other program in that usually those data warehouses live with a carrier. So that's very important in having that information available to you and at your fingertips with our assistance to make good decisions on. And then finally, FSBIT remains a part of Fleet. They serve as our accounting arm of Fleet. They put together these fancy reports and these financial packages for CFOs that are turnkey at the conclusion of each month to show the CFO and the district how the program is running month over month, how the funding is working through a function of board contributions and employee payroll deductions relative to the cost and the claims that are coming into your program. And so all of this data and this package arrives to the district monthly in user-ready format from FSBIT. So those are the 4 major operational components of Fleet as a group. This is just a snapshot, if you will, of the member benefits and the scope of services that are provided as a member of Fleet. The annual repricing on pharmacy benefits is huge. We're seeing huge savings in the pharmacy world. It's usual to see pharmacy contracts that are 2 or 3 year contracts. Pharmacy world, like everything else, like technology, 3 years ago we were just starting to talk about AI, right? Well, pharmacy world changes about as fast. If you watch TV for any length of time, you're going to see one commercial right after the next, introducing new drugs right to the market. There are also name brand drugs that are going generic for the first time. So it's important to stay on top of your pharmacy costs. Your pharmacy costs may run anywhere from 18 to 30% as an overall cost to your overall program. And so one of the member benefits is that we annually reprice and we'll shop that stop loss, as well as the pharmacy, and reprice your medical claims to make sure that our districts are getting the very best deal for their dollar. Many of these I've already mentioned for the sake of time and getting to the Q&A, which is really where the rubber meets the road. I'll leave that with you for your own review. So very quickly, I wanted to go through that rather fast, maybe too fast, but let's park there for a minute, and Madam Board Chair will await your questions.
Okay. Anyone want to start? Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, so not knowing so much about this, you provide a network of doctors, hospitals, pharmacies that we can contract and use, or how do we establish a premium for our employees? Those are my basic questions. You're outlining the back end of this, but I want to know how it works for the individual employee of the district.
Okay, so the autonomy lives still at the district level with who your carrier is. So if you wanted to remain with Florida Blue, then you could remain with Florida Blue. If you don't want to do any design changes in your overall plans, that is those plans that your employees have to choose from, that's completely up to the district and that process for whatever you have in place. Most have an insurance and benefits committee, right, that inform those decisions. So really what you would be moving to would be a program that is self-insured, where your relationship, assuming you stayed with Florida Blue, would become one of an ASO relationship, administrative services only, where you enter into an agreement for a fee per employee to be able to access the Florida Blue network and for your employees to have that Florida Blue card. In many cases, the member number on that, I would say in most cases, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, the member number or the group number and the member number on their insurance card wouldn't even change, moving from a fully insured program with Florida Blue to a self-insured program. So what we would do is we would come in, assuming that you all joined Fleet, and we would start putting together the pathway to what it looks like with Florida Blue inside of Fleet for 1/1 of 27. A part of that process includes shopping stop loss and getting a stop loss carrier in place to ensure the district's overall interest financially. The PBM might be carved out, might not be carved out, just depending on what type of response we could get from Florida Blue on their self-insured pharmacy program for school districts. Joe, do you want to elaborate on any of that any further? Part of that is also funding recommendations. The actuarial services that Alliant does would take what you currently fund as a part of your board contribution and the income from the payroll deduction from your employees that goes together in one pot. And they say, okay, based on projections, this is the amount of revenue you have to fund at a 90% confidence interval, where you can say with 90% confidence that you're going to be funding appropriately for your claims. Those numbers would come from Alliant back to you all as a school board to adopt prior to going live and active with Fleet in 1/1 of 27. Joe?
If you'll hit your light, please. Thank you.
There we go. Okay. If you wanted to stay with Florida Blue, you're basically renting their doctor network when you go self-insured. When you're fully insured, it's still the same exact doctor network. The only difference is, instead of them providing it to you for a profit, you are renting their network. So none of that changes. All four of the major carriers participate with Fleet. So we have some districts with Cigna, some districts with Aetna, some districts with United, and some districts with Florida Blue. You have full autonomy. You can select whatever you want. As far as the when you think about how much you're going to pay in premium, you typically think of premium when you're fully insured. It's the same function, but in the self-insured world, we call it a recommended funding. But it's the same structure.
Being a simple person and considering it a premium, it's almost like we're acting as the insurance agent or broker going directly to Blue Cross rather than through a third party. Is that what you're saying?
Not exactly. What you're doing when you go self-insured is you are in some respects becoming the insurance company, not the agent.
Okay.
So in the reality, you have the company, which is Florida Blue, when you're fully insured, and what an agent does is they're the salesman, right? So in this case, there is no salesman. Fleet is managing that process for you.
Right, that's
so-
basically what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, you just become an insurance company as opposed to an insurance agent.
And you anticipate the savings between 7 and 10% initially?
Yes, sir. And the math on that's pretty simple. When you're fully insured, the carriers make about a 7.5% profit.
Right.
When you go self-insured, they don't make that profit anymore. And when you're fully insured, Florida Office of Insurance Regulation requires you to pay a fully insured premium tax. When you go self-insured, they don't impose that tax. So you add those two together, you get 10%.
One other question with that. So at the end of the fiscal year of that policy, I guess the total dollar amount of the claims are added up to see if they reach or exceed a given threshold, and that would adjust the premium up or down?
So that analysis takes place regularly on the month. I mean,
Right.
you're going to be looking at that month to month revenue versus claims. And when I say claims, I'm not only talking about medical claims from doctor office visits, urgent care, hospitalization, surgeries. I'm also talking about pharmacy.
Right.
All that comes into a number, right? And you're going to be able to see as a district month to month how you're running. Our goal is to put you in a position, obviously, with our recommendations through Alliant, that your revenue is always a little bit greater, right, than your cost. So you're running in the black. That wouldn't be trued up at the end of the year. It never would be a scenario where after 12 months you're ending that 1 year self-insured and oh my gosh, we have this huge surprise. That simply would not take place. There would be indicators by looking at that by the month that would, in many times, allow you an opportunity as a board to make adjustments if necessary.
When you say adjustments, what kind of adjustments? To how much we deduct or from an employee's salary, or how much we don't deduct if it's a positive number, a reduction?
How much you pay for claims.
How much you pay for claims, yep.
So if you think of it this way, when you're fully insured, you pay the same premium month after month after month.
Right.
And there's claims being taken out by the carrier that's how they pay doctors, right? At the end, if you gave the carrier more money than you spent on claims, they keep the difference. It goes into their profits. If you spent more than they were charging you, that's when you get a large rate increase.
Right.
They still get their money back, right? It's just through a rate increase. When you go self-insured, that first example I gave where you didn't spend as much as you fund in, you keep that difference. It goes into a bank account with your name on it. The carrier doesn't get that. You keep it. And in the event that your claims are higher than your funding, if it triggers your stop-loss insurance policy, the stop-loss carrier pays that claim for you. If it doesn't trigger the stop-loss policy, you would just take some of the money out of your savings account and pay that. And then at the end of the year, we would come back and say, okay, this is what your trends look like, your own claims. You're paying your own claims. This is what they look like. You need to increase your funding. Your recommended funding may go up 4 or 5%, as opposed to taking a rate increase in a fully insured scenario. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, thank you. I was looking for that explanation.
Yeah.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Is there any binding contracts that would be involved?
There's a participation agreement, and then there's a set of bylaws and the trust document itself that explain the exit process for a district that joins and then wants to leave. Fortunately, we have not experienced that yet. We had one that thought about it, and then they saw the rates that they were going to get by staying inside a fleet, and they decided to stay with fleet.
There are no binding contracts with fleet. If you wanted to leave, you simply leave.
Yep.
Where there are binding contracts that you need to be aware of, just like if you have a contract with Florida Blue, that's a binding 1-year contract, right? So when you go self-insured, instead of having one contract with, say, Florida Blue, you're going to have an ASO contract. That's administrative service. That's your doctor network. That's going to be a binding contract. You're also going to have a PBM contract. Think of that as your pharmacy, your medications. That is a binding contract. And you're going to have a stop-loss contract. In the event you have a really high claim, they come in and bail you out. That is also a binding contract. So as it relates to fleet, there is no contract. As it relates to the program itself that you're going to be running, there are binding contracts.
So Rivard says that they have saved over $1 million, as well as Hendry County. They saved nearly $5 million in their health insurance fund, which, if that's the case, that's tangible savings.
That's real dollars in their budget.
So basically, by having this, we would be essentially saving on the employee health plans without having to pass along the benefit reductions. We would be able to pick and choose.
So our job is to lower your overall cost. We don't go past that. Our job is to drive down the cost to the school district as much as possible. What you guys choose to do with that savings is your business. Whether you want to, and we have one district for the first time that I've ever seen it in 25 years, made their insurance benefits richer for the employee. They lowered the deductible instead of raising it. Other districts build up a huge surplus so they don't have those shock years, right? So you don't get that 12% rate increase. You get a 2 or 3% every single year. The strategy that you impose with the savings we create for you is completely up to you.
When it comes to the broker, does this basically put the district, not the broker, in control?
The district's fully in control.
100%.
So that gives us long-term savings.
Yes. You save your money. We make recommendations to you with the analytical support of why we're saying it, but you ultimately make your own decisions.
I had another question. Let's see what I had written. How many counties did you say are involved?
14.
Okay, I did want to ask you about the health clinics. Currently, we do not have one. And I know you had touched just maybe a sentence or two on that. How does that work?
You want
No, you go ahead. You built one.
Yeah. So in my previous district, moving from fully insured, we were fully insured forever, and we moved into the self-insured environment. Get this, February 20th of 2020. Nice. Perfect timing, right? 3 weeks later, we're shut down for what we won't talk about anymore. Over the next year or two following the pandemic, we started looking at having a clinic model, putting a clinic model in place. It would be a wellness center for district employees and their families to be able to come, primary care visits, to build out a suite of services that would include a list of maintenance drugs most commonly used, right, among the employees and their families, to have on-site lab services, on-site x-ray services, and bringing those services in-house so that we could run our workers' comp through that. We could run our pre-employment physicals through that operation, through that clinic setup. And so what we found and what we experienced after that, I think that was in place probably 2.5 years prior to me not running for office. No rumors. I didn't run for re-election and they booted. I retired from public office. But it was one of the better things we had done. It was one of the better things we had done for our employees and their families. And so what we wanted to do, because we have a growing number of districts inside a fleet that want to have that type of service for their employees and their families, Mr. Albritton and his team brought a solution to the table to help bring that to any district that wants to move into that arena. What I will say is that there's not really benefit for you as a district going down that road into the clinic or wellness center operation unless you're self-insured. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We can talk more about that. But Joe, you want to kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, a lot of generally the way you save money is the direct care model is cheaper than going to a hospital. Easiest way to think about it. If you go to an urgent care center or go to the hospital, versus going to your direct care model that you are funding at a reduced rate, you save money. It's a proven model over and over and over again. The convenience dynamic is something that shouldn't be overlooked either. For the employees to have a convenient place to go get care. One of the big things that we heard from a lot of districts that wanted to go down the road of clinics, but it was a little scary for them because they're not healthcare companies. How do we even do this? Like, this is terrifying. How do we open a doctor's office? We're educators. What in the world? Well, that's the solution that Ted's referencing. We went into the marketplace and found the best in class in the world health clinic, we call them clinical analysis and management companies. So if you decided you wanted to open a clinic, they'd run the analysis for you. They would determine how much it would save you, where you should put the clinics, how many clinics you should have. Good examples, Polk Schools currently has 2 clinics. They're looking to expand it to 6 clinics. So this company comes in and they do that for you, and then they execute the plan that you decide on your behalf. One thing that's really great about the way we structured that operation, if the clinic is selected to come into Hernando and they don't generate real dollar return on investment to you, the contract we have in place with them, they have to give you money back, real dollars. There are real like financial implications if they come in here and they can't execute what they're promising. That's a little bit different than what a lot of other clinic structures do.
So what's our benefit by having multiple school districts involved? As you're capturing all these districts, how does the economy of scale work by doing that?
Well, so I'll give the example of amoxicillin is amoxicillin. If you buy 15 doses of amoxicillin, you're not going to buy it as cheap as if you buy 15,000 doses of amoxicillin. It's just a simple rule of economics, right? Economy of scale generates financial savings. That typically only applies in a commodity scenario. It has to be that amoxicillin is amoxicillin. So then when you buy a lot of it, the cost goes down. Does that make sense to you? So if Hernando by itself went out and tried to buy amoxicillin through the PBM contract, the price you would get because of the size of your school district is going to be higher than the price that Fleet would get with 37,000. So that's one dynamic of the benefit of joining together with other school districts, is simply an economy of scale purchasing. We are seeing 10, 12, 15% reduction in pharmacy spend from an independently bid PBM versus a Fleet bid PBM. When we go into the market on a Fleet dynamic, we are marketing as Fleet, not as the individual school district. The contracts are written to the district, but that PBM realizes, oh, I'm bidding on 37,000 potential people here, not 1,700. So that's that dynamic on the commodities. On the volatility side, does it make sense to you that, I know I'm going to talk about statistics. People hate statistics.
I knew you were going there.
I can't help it. It's the world I live in. So when you have 100 trials or 100 samples of something, the volatility of that is much, much greater than if you have 100,000 samples. 100,000 samples is far more predictable than 100, right? It works exactly the same way with your claims. So if you went self-insured by yourself, roughly 4% of your total claims is going to make up about 55% of your claim spend. So it's the same, it's the old-fashioned mindset of 10% of the people is causing 90% of the spend, right? Everybody knows that to be true. Well, if a group of 1,000 people, 4% is driving that, that's only 40 people. So if you had a bad situation and you had 10 more And it went from 40 to 50, which on a group of 1,000 seems pretty reasonable. That's not that hard to do. That's a 1% swing, right? Your 55% spend just jumped 25% because of those 10 people. But if you were 100,000 people, it's far more predictable. You're not going to have the same rate shock just because of the statistical predictability of it. We just went through a presentation last week that showed, it's technically called a Monte Carlo simulation, but it's 100,000 claims, actual claims profiles. And it showed what happens when you're independently insured, and it was a big spread versus the volatility if you are in fact pooled. So that's the other thing that that is an advantage of school districts joining with other districts, is it becomes far more predictable. The volatility is reduced. So you have the economy of scale savings and the volatility reduction. I hope I didn't get too in the weeds on that. But.
No. Are you okay, Ms. Bonzik?
So I have a couple questions. You said we oversee it, as in the board themselves, or we're going to have Mr. Goldrick oversee it?
The superintendent.
The superintendent oversees it?
Oversee your plan?
Yeah.
How do you do it now?
Goldrick does it, right?
Well, I mean,
Oversees our
benefits,
insurance.
and we go through our
Benefits, yeah.
purchasing and all of that, but I mean, yeah.
That'd be the same. Okay, and then what about, do we lose all choices for the teachers? Is this the only choice they're going to have if we go self-insured?
You're not going to lose any choice
Okay.
in what you have. The only thing that there may be is there may be more choices for you all to choose from.
Okay.
More opportunities to look at, especially if there are, if you were with Florida Blue Prime Therapeutics, which is the PBM arm of Florida Blue, right? And we came back through that repricing and said, listen, you all can save 10, 12, 14% by moving over to, pick one, CVS or Optum within the trust model, the trust contract that we have. Then you all would make that decision ultimately to either move from Florida Blue Prime Therapeutics to one of those other carriers. But what you do with that savings is up to you all.
Okay.
And whether or not you move or your employees are comfortable carrying a second or a different card, having to carry a second card for that prescription drug plan, that would all be up to you.
You technically wind up with more choices, not less.
More choices, not okay, that's what
And
I'm
better
trying to
choices.
get at. Okay. And then your healthcare, not the healthcare, but the freestanding building that would be a health building. How hard are those to get? And do you know about how much it would cost to get it up and going? Meaning having like the clinic.
Yeah.
Thank you. The fire department has it, so I'm just wondering.
In some cases, again, depending on where you would need or want to put in a clinic or clinics, whether or not you have existing buildings that could be used and or retrofitted versus a brand new build, all highly obviously impacts the cost.
But we don't have to have. We could use an existing building, is what you're telling me then.
Yeah, oh, absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
Existing
Yeah, and in our case, there was a doctor that was retired, and we actually bought the doctor's office, so everybody already knew that as a doctor's office, and we renovated the doctor office space, and then it became our school district's wellness center is what we call it. And so, there's a lot of options there, but that's one of those things that this company that we're now partnered with will come in and do all that work and do that analysis and look at the heat maps of population of where your folks live. Where do they do life, right? Where do they go to the grocery store? Where do they go to recreate? Where those are placed is highly important to utilization. Employees aren't going to necessarily drive 35 or 40 minutes, right, for primary care if there's a regular mom and pop doctor's office 10 minutes down the road from their house. So all of that needs to be looked at. And if that's something that you all ended up wanting to look at, we could certainly help do that for you.
One of the things that I negotiated when we went to contract with the company that we eventually partnered with, that Fleet partnered with, was I wanted somebody that would manage the construction if that's what the district wanted. if you guys said, we do not want to manage the construction of a clinic, that's too much for us to think about. I wanted a company that had the capability of doing that, and that's one of the reasons we selected this company. So as far as how hard is it to do, how hard do you want to make it for yourself is the question. How involved do you want to be? Because they'll carry it from start to finish for you.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Mr. Roush, since you're a data-driven person, I would presume that you have done analysis on all the different districts. Are you seeing savings in all the districts? And what does that look like to you? I know that I was able to pull up Hendry County for the $5 million in savings, Brevard for the $1 million. I'm sure there's more. Can you give me a little insight on what your data looks like?
Well, Polk's another example. We just rolled a program out in Polk that saved them $4.5 million more. We went into the contracts and found, I call it black hole money. It's probably not the correct term, but that's what I call it. It's the details in the contracts where maybe the district didn't know they were supposed to invoice somebody to get paid, so they weren't doing it. We found about $850,000 of black hole money in Polk. That it just wasn't being done. So I think we have not been into a district yet that we don't save significant amount of money. And the statistic that we put up, there was a second statistic that we didn't touch on. So going from self-insured, or going from fully insured to self-insured, you're going to save that carrier profit and that premium tax, right? Simple. Second statistic on that slide, we're seeing savings of 7 to 11% of independently self-insured to fleet self-insured. So you save the first chunk by going self-insured, but then by leveraging the economy of scale and volatility management, you're saving an additional 7 to 11%. And we're seeing that those are real numbers. Those are based on actual dollar savings.
Which essentially is saving the taxpayers.
100%.
So
There hasn't been a district yet where we haven't been able to bring a better pharmacy solution with savings, a stop-loss policy with savings, and that's just touching, the tip of the iceberg. In a lot of cases, depending on how well a plan is being run, there may be some redundancy there that can be captured, to Mr. Albritton's point. Some redundancy in terms of you're paying 3 people to do parts of the same thing. So yeah, the savings are definitely there.
not to mention what I liked is the idea that you're able to see and get a glimpse of everything that's going on behind the scenes. Where with our current carrier, and not to say we would change carriers, but with our current insurance, the way that it is, I don't think you get to see all of the data.
It's more than a glimpse.
I think it's a glimpse
you see
on
literally,
any others. This
you
is
see literally
this
all
you're
of it.
this you're able to see every single thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, every single thing.
Superintendent Bender.
And I think just to add on to the data, when you see the data, then that helps you make additional changes, adjustments along the way to help with some of the overall costs. I just wanted to say, we've been talking about insurance for, I don't know, as long as I've been around, I think, in Hernando County and maybe the world, I don't know. And there was a time when we were self-insured. So for those people that have been around a while, I want to say with as much confidence as I can that this is not what we did before with self-insured. One of the things that when we were self-insured before, which I know was a nightmare for everyone, was the board decided who got treatment, basically, who got treated, and like that. That's not what we're talking about. A lot of the reassurances that you're talking about with these different organizations, groups, help control some of the cost. It's from a trusted source. It's, FADS is backing this, FSBA, FSBIT, all these different organizations. You guys aren't vendors. You're organizations. You said that you currently have 37,000 people participating now in your insurance, and that gives you good buying power. And you're just starting. So as you think of that, and as you started with when we started talking to you, when I ran in, when we talked, you had a couple districts, and now you have 15 and 25 in kind of the hopper.
Right.
So when you add those districts on, that 37 goes to more people, then that gives you, I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, more buying power. So that multiplies that effect. I know when we first talked, I thought, when you get that feeling in your head like it's too good to be true, maybe you should back away from this. That was my initial kind of, but as we talked more and we discover more, I see it as a possible opportunity. And I don't want people to think like I ran into you at a conference and we're going in this direction. There's been a lot of thought over the years between the district and the insurance committee and all the groups that are on that insurance committee, and conversations that we've had since the first time we ran into each other to get to this point. So I just wanted to give that background. And I know that involved, I believe, a couple weeks ago, you guys made a presentation to our insurance committee also.
Correct.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of conversations, and I think more that'll continue. So this is part of that process.
All right, Ms. Duval.
Just a quick question. Right now you have 15 districts?
14 with the 15th voting tonight.
Okay, 15. And you're looking to add 25 more or 24 more. Are you going to have the ability, management-wise, with the groups that you work with, to handle such a huge increase in participation? The companies that you work with?
Yes, yeah, go ahead. Talk about that.
So, Alliant, for example, when we built this program out, we started building this program out about 4 years ago. To your point, this didn't come to us 3 months ago. We've been working on this for about. We had to design a structure that could handle up to 275,000 lives. Now, why do I say that number? Because if you took every school district in the state of Florida and they all joined, that's about 350,000 employees. And if you take about a 75–80% participation profile, you come in at about 275,000 lives. So when we built the team out, we sought out people that had the scalability to handle up to 275,000 lives in less than a year. My mind was I needed to have somebody, if we went from 0 to 275,000 in 1 year, could they handle it? And I know that's a big statement because the state of Florida health insured employees is only 183,000. This could wind up being bigger than the state of Florida employee pool, right? So when we chose Alliant is the number 4 insurance broker in the world. They have tens of thousands of employees and resources like you can't believe. Marsh is who we selected as the clinical solution. Marsh is the largest broker in the world. They have 100,000 employees. The people we partnered with, it was intentional that we could take on from 0 to 275,000 in 1 year. Now, that's not going to happen, but my fear was, what if it did? Because I don't have the flexibility or option of this not working.
Correct.
Ted would be very unhappy with me if that happened.
I asked that question only to reassure the board that you all have planned this out in every aspect of the way. I heard a presentation before, so I am fully in favor of this. But just in case you wondered if they could keep up, yes, they can.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Duval. Ms. Rodriguez?
So the scenario you shared about 10% of claims impacting the renewals, what if we had a bad year?
In a stop-loss program, you set what's called an aggregate limit. So if you imagine you're going to have, I'm just going to make some numbers up, for example. Let's just say you anticipate $10 million in claims, that you've projected $10 million in claims is the most likely 90% confidence interval you're going to be at $10 million in claims. We would place a commercial stop-loss policy, insurance policy, at $10,001 to an unlimited amount. So if you had a bad year, the stop-loss would carry that for you and protect you.
Are we still expected to see increases based on our claims?
Absolutely. If I would be lying to you if I sat here and told you that you're not going to have increases. Everything costs more every year. If you think of it this way, right now your rate increase, this is your trend line of your insurance premiums. By going self-insured, you drop it 10%.
It's still going to increase.
It's still going to increase, but then you lay in the clinics and you lay in some of the cost savings measures, then you flatten it. But it doesn't go completely flat, and it certainly doesn't go negative.
Opposed to the other that we're
Exactly.
moving straight up.
Uncontrolled.
How does our participation impact the fluctuations year to year with our renewals?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
With us participating in this, how is it year to year going to be with our renewals? How does that impact us?
That's going to be driven by your claims. It's really, really hard for me to predict that. If you had an exceptionally bad year, the stop-loss policy would cover you that year, right? In the year the claims hit, but that same stop-loss company that's providing that insurance for you just lost money on you. So the next year, they're going to raise their rate, right? So it's really hard for me to project what's going to happen. All I can tell you is whatever that event was going to be, if you were fully insured, that same event was going to happen to you.
Would be significant higher.
Yes.
Yes.
What about our pharmaceutical rates? I don't know if you touched on that. Tell me again.
That's where the economy's scale comes in.
There's not been a district yet there has not been pharmaceutical rates
When
through
you
the PBM.
Right, when you said
savings.
that basically you're the powerhouse and opposed to us being single by ourselves buying that certain drug. So when you guys are purchasing it for us, of course, you're getting the best buy. Is that the same thing across the board on all medication, on everything? Is it just certain things that you pick and choose from that you guys are getting a benefit, or is it going to be all of it?
It's all of the medications.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah. In regards to if we're self-insured and we have a bad year, as you were saying, we go over that $10 million threshold into a vague area, we're not considered part of a larger pool where that gets flattened out? Economy of scale?
You transfer that risk off completely. So if you decide as a district that we're only comfortable taking $10 million in risk, you buy an insurance policy that if you go above $10 million, you don't pay any more money. It's a complete transfer at that really bad year. It's not a risk sharing, it's off of you.
Okay. So if Henry County has a horrible, disastrous year, their $200 million in claims is not going to affect the rates that go across because it's laid off on an insurance company?
Correct, at the very top side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where you save money is below that top side.
Yeah. I think it's something worth moving forward with personally.
What I like is that you have so many counties that are utilizing your service. I like the fact that we can pick up the phone at any given day and we can give them a call and we can verify. So I think that anytime you have a business and you have customers that you can pick up the phone and call and see, how they feel about what they're doing, I think that's a win.
Mr. Pender?
So if I'm hearing the board correctly, seems like we have consensus to move forward, and then what does that look like? that's the case. I assume forward motion is not.
I would like to see, I wish that you would have come with some numbers showing us from another district's perspective on maybe what, their monthly fee, for the year was and how their rates differed, changed from year to year. I feel like it is very new.
I'd like to see
I like it, but I would love to have seen the numbers. I would also like to see the numbers as what are we paying for the FSBIT fee per person? What are we paying for the ALS contract per person? What are we paying for the PBM contract? Just examples of, and then also, what's the transition cost? I'm sure there's got to be a transition. You have a transition plan, so there's got to be a cost there. I know you said there really wasn't an exit cost. It's just an exit cost if we choose to come out of it by the contracts that we have. Just some examples to have, some more data, some more information
I'd
on
like
that.
to see an estimate of what it would cost us versus
Right.
what we're paying now.
Right.
So some of the things you said, I would absolutely love to show you.
Okay.
Because it's an opportunity for Fleet to kind of brag. I mean, we've had a lot of success, so I welcome that. As far as what your PBM cost would be as Hernando schools compared to Henry schools,
Give me a comparable one, is what I was asking for. I know that it would be a little bit different.
yeah, I mean, we can show you kind of what it will look like, but your actual cost will come, you're a 1-1, correct?
1/1 of 27.
So your actual cost would be handed to you in, say, September, and then you'd make the decision, yeah, this looks good or not.
And that goes by claims.
Yeah, because we'd have to get that's the reason for the participation agreement, so we can collect the data to be able to show you the actual numbers.
Right. But what does the participation agreement also cost? Those as well.
I think that's what he was about.
But I go back.
over.
I go back to one thing though. Being a business owner ourselves, we wouldn't have customers, and our parking lot wouldn't still continue to be full. One, it's because of God, and two, because we're blessed, and three, because we have quality and we do a good job. But we would not have the customers there, and the parking lot would not be full. We would look like the Maytag man every time you drove by if we weren't able to deliver and execute what we say we can. So I feel like I already feel confident. And yeah, Mrs. Hawkins, I agree. I think numbers are good and the whole 9 yards. So definitely whatever they would like to see. But I feel extremely confident seeing all of those counties and the counties that I know and those superintendents that I know as well. And none of those people would be using you. They would not sustain, they would not continue, they would pull out if it was not a benefit. So, once again, yeah, definitely proof is in the pudding. By all means, feel free, show whatever you'd like. But as far as my stance and me sitting here, I definitely believe that they're all business people, and none of them in those districts would continue to use you and utilize the services if it was not a benefit. And I did research you, was able to see all the savings, and it was not just a little bit, it's a astronomical amount. So thank you for your presentation. Just from me saying, the chair will let you go whenever time is, but I just want to say thank you for coming here and thank you for giving us this opportunity.
So if we move forward, do we want to call for consensus for moving forward with this, Mr. Pender?
Yes, I would like to, and then I think you wanted to share some of the next step. Didn't you want to talk about that?
Well, the next step he said was September.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
There's a lot to get to September.
Yeah.
The September was when I get to come show the chair the actual.
yeah, before you
Okay,
decide
thank
that
you.
you might want to hear the next step.
You have to enter into a participation
So,
agreement. right?
yeah, the steps would go like this. You're fully insured.
Make it easy on us and
Okay.
be really nice.
All right, so
that we say yes.
I'll kind of break it down here. The participation agreement, the one-page participation agreement would come before this board for consideration. You would act on that participation agreement. It would be signed by the superintendent and the board chair if passed by 3-2 or better vote, right? It comes back to me. I take it to our board, made up of Fleet member districts. They vote to accept you as a district entering into Fleet. And I was going to say something I probably shouldn't say. There are
No, you go ahead.
it's true. There are a handful of districts that are not eligible for a number of reasons. We won't get into that. You all are not one of them. You're run very, very well. So you would be accepted into Fleet by the Fleet board, and then all the processes that have to go on with the data piece to be able to get the data, to be able to get the numbers, to be able to run a stop loss on, to get a PBM contract on, all that would take place. Normally, a district has an agent, and the agent would normally work with us if they were wanting to be friendly and work you up to that 1/1/27 active date inside a fleet. If you don't have that in-house expertise and you come to us and say, listen, hold our hand and walk us from, say, January, if you acted on it in January, up to the next January, we would put together a short-term contract with another business partner that has the expertise in transitioning districts from fully insured to self-insured month by month. This is what happens up to that 1/1/27 entry point. So the first thing that has to happen is the participation agreement. To your question, Madam Board Chair, that is a one-time setup fee inside to get everything set up for the eventual start of Hernando inside a fleet is a one-time $10,000 fee.
Okay.
Period.
Thank you.
That $10,000 fee, does that include if we needed an agent to walk us up to that January timetable?
No, that is additional fees.
That's to set up the operation for you inside a fleet.
How much would the other contract
You wanna speak to
as an agent to walk us through it?
We have some districts that are doing it on their own, and we have other districts that are contracting to have it done for them. Joe, you want to speak to that?
One thing is I would recommend that you reach out to Mike Swindle, for example, we're talking about injury. He utilized the Avail Benefits team to transition him. Other districts have not. So it's really up to you guys. And there's not a set amount because different districts need different amounts of help. So what would happen is we would evaluate what you guys can do on your own. It's a short-term contract. The whole purpose of it is to get you into fleet. So we would sit down with Matt and say, okay, what can your staff do? What would you like for us to do? Florida Blue's an excellent partner. We brought districts that were fully insured with Florida Blue. I know you guys deal with Robin McDonald at Florida Blue. He's excellent. The amount of work that would be required is minimal with Florida Blue, and I'm not sitting here marketing Florida Blue by any stretch, but the way they carry out the transition is much smoother than other carriers. So I would tell you that if you needed help, it would be minimal because you're with Florida Blue.
Okay.
But we would just sit
Thank you.
to find out.
Okay. Are we going to move forward with this? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Thank you, guys. Appreciate
Thank you for your time.
presentation.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you again. Okay. Earlier I misspoke. We are actually moving item number 326-3398 to the very last item on the agenda, number 6. So we're going to call forward number 4 that was on the agenda item, which is review 26-3348, review and tentative approval of the volunteer handbook. Okay, welcome. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, and Superintendent Pender. My name is Angel Pagam, Director of Safe School. With me, I have my security systems facilitator, Beverly Drew, who's well-versed in the volunteer coordinator program that we began numerous years ago when she's been in our Office of Safe Schools, and it's been extremely helpful in putting this together as well. We currently, I noticed that we had an issue with, we had a older version of the handbook that was apparently not being shared among the district correctly, and there was a lot of questions. And so I took a look at it. We formed a committee between the district safety team. It was the lead principals. It also went to cabinet for review. And I think we came across a better version, a more condensed version from 20 pages down to 13, 2 of them being the title page and the table contents, so basically 11 pages. That would make it a little more easier for parents, students, staff, all to understand what the volunteer program is all about. And I do have the corrected version with the corrections. I don't know if you wanted to see the clean version or...
Board, if anyone has any comments or suggestions, do you want to see the clean version, or do you want to?
I like the strike through because it shows us where the changes were.
Okay, do you want him to go through the whole volunteer book due to time, or do we have anything we want to question or pull?
The only question I have is what if the fees for volunteers are still $75 a year?
The fees vary, and it depends on who the vendor that they go to for fingerprinting is. So there is no set quote, but it is a much higher, depending on who you go to, but there are more than one option.
Okay.
Ms. Bonzik?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's been brought up a couple times, somebody that's committed a felon right before they turn 18, non-sexual, non-children, but did a felony, they can't ever be volunteer.
Well, there's a matrix that we have to follow by statute.
Okay.
And it's not it's not us.
It's not us. It's actual Florida state statute, which that's what I thought, but
Yes.
I just want to make sure because
Yes.
somebody questioned that. They're like, here's the thing. I did it when I was 17.
Right.
Charged at 18. I have a felony on my record, and I can't ever do it. Now I've been out. I haven't done anything. I've been good 20 years.
It's unfortunate, but
Right.
These decisions, bad judgments that we make when we're young,
I know.
follow you for a long
Forever.
time.
Okay, good enough. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Ms. Duval, do you have anything? Okay. Mr. Pender?
No, I don't have anything. I just don't know if board members have any specific questions. If not, and we're good.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll
Okay.
send it for approval in the next board meeting, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your time.
Whoop.
Oh,
Okay.
hold on 1 second. Oh, hit your light, please.
It's Mr. Mark Johnson instead of Mrs. Mark Johnson on the paper we scratched out, but we didn't scratch out Mrs.
Oh, is it on?
On the, I think on the
Strike
clean
through.
version is fixed.
On the strike view.
Okay, I'll take
Just
a look.
make sure they don't put.
I will definitely take a look at that. I apologize for that.
And Ms. Rodriguez is back, so let me chime in with her.
Sure.
Do you have anything that you wanted to pull on the volunteer handbook?
I do not. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Yeah, my wife is not on the school board. Is not on the school board.
Okay, and we'll move on to item number 5, 263431. Review proposed job description of the substitute ESE therapy provider.
Good afternoon, Board Chair, Board members, Superintendent. We are here today to give you a draft of a substitute ESE therapy provider job description. We welcome any questions.
Ms. Rodriguez?
So by having, well, thank you ladies for being here. And by having a substitute ESE therapy provider in-house opposed to outside contracting, I know we could have both or in addition to, that is going to be a savings to us, correct?
Yes, we are hoping, we do multiple ways of trying to make sure that students are getting services. And we have contracted services, which are very costly, but we do have to use them when we have open positions. We have some virtual options, which we had brought to you guys in the past. And we're still not ruling that out, but we're tweaking what it looks like to bring it back to you. And then this is another option we are hoping to use, just like we would have a substitute for a teacher coming in. And we are offering them whatever the starting hourly rate would be for one of those therapy providers to make it competitive. We're hoping we can get some people that maybe have retired, that still hold the correct licensure and certifications to come in and help us out.
Well, I like the fact that it is a actual person. I'm not a fan of the virtual when it comes to ESE, so definitely I think that having somebody there in front of them is much better.
And just as a comparison for the board, contract services generally can range from $55 an hour to $100 an hour. So just to give you an idea of how much those actually cost.
Thank you. Any other further discussion?
Do we have any substitutes right now currently that are applying?
It has to be approved first, and then we'll start advertising it. So it'll go on the next board agenda for your final approval, and then we can start advertising.
Thank you.
And Ms. Rodriguez, to answer that question, I know a few that are willing to do it if the position is open that way, that has already met with people and
That's what I
said
meant.
that they would do it, yes.
You were
so.
fine with your answer,
Okay.
but that's what I meant. Were we already sitting somewhere in a position where we would have potential applicants?
Yes, we're going to start with our retired educators. They know our system. They know how things work. A lot of them still will know the students, so we're hoping that they'll want to come back and earn some vacation money or something like that.
And they currently still have the licensure as well that's required by the state of Florida.
Very nice. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Pender?
Sounds like that we have consensus to move forward. It'll be on the next board agenda. It's not normal practice, but what I would ask is that I'm allowed to post this job with the job description tentatively approved so that we can get that out there, and then not hire or offer a position until it's board approved, if you guys are okay with that.
I agree.
I think that's a great way to offer a Christmas present.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. We
Thank you.
appreciate your Christmas present.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we have a hard stop at 5 p.m. If the board wishes, we can stop here, or we can try to continue.
I would like to continue. Can we do?
Okay.
Can
So
we do
we're
number
going
6?
to, absolutely, we're going to move on to item number 6, 26-3481, presentation of the analysis of the athletic ticket pricing,
You got 15
pass
minutes.
option, and related revenue and budget trends.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, Superintendent Pender. Let me pull this up here.
Good afternoon, sir.
All right. Not sure how to view this. We'll roll with it this way. All right. So kind of real quick, what Ms. Hawkins and other board members had asked me to kind of put together, just kind of a review of current practices and some of our past issues that we've had with ticket prices and family passes and whatnot. Some of the current trends that we're seeing around the state, as well as some of the athletic expenses that we're seeing, and just kind of the averages from middle and high, along with some ticket sales and some future considerations. So just to review, just to make sure we understand where we're at right now, our middle school prices are $6 for varsity football, $5 for all other sports. High school is $10 for varsity football, The high school student ticket stayed at 8, and all other sports are at 6. Also, a reminder that we got rid of parking this year for the first time, as far as I know. I also want to remind everybody that children 4th grade and below, accompanied with an adult, are free. So they're already getting in free. We also admit any Hernando County School Board employee with their badge in for free. And there is also a Hernando County School District retiree honorary pass that they register with me, and they can go to any athletic event for free as long as they have that pass. It's a digital pass. So there's a fair amount that are already kind of, have that bonus pass there. You had asked me to kind of accumulate what is currently being offered as far as season passes or family passes. We don't currently offer any family passes or any school year long passes. However, all of the high schools do offer a single sport, single person season pass. And generally speaking, they basically knock off a game. So they're getting a game discount, and they're also not being charged a processing fee every single time if they chose the digital route. So they're saving on that as well, and they're saving on time, right? They just walk right in, flash it, scan it, and they're in. The only one that's offering any other type of pass is WikiWatchy. This is specific to the season, all right? They did it this fall for the first time. They only sold 28 of them. They were $20. They could go to as many fall sporting events as they wanted to. Only 28 were sold. I believe that's a school of around 1,600. So not a great success rate. It was in year one, but that is a pretty darn good deal. I'm hoping, to see what the numbers look like in the winter for basketball and soccer and wrestling and cheer and whatnot. The middle schools do not offer any passes because the seasons are so short. It just doesn't really make sense. Each school only hosts 3 home games, so it just doesn't make sense. Not worth the juice isn't worth the squeeze there. And then, as I mentioned, those honorary passes. And then we also do have some different incentive and donation nights. For example, one time I was at Springstead, we did something where if you brought in a canned good, that was your ticket, right? So there's different nights like that. So some past issues we talked about: misuse and abuse of the family passes. It was hard to enforce, though I think the digital piece could help us with that a little bit. It definitely caused some friction at the gate at times. Participation numbers were low, and then it does negatively affect our athletic department's bottom line. So again, these are the numbers of our fall sports season passes from this past this past season. You could see varying levels of success. Football is the big one, generally, varsity football as well. You see there varsity and JV volleyball. That is a joint pass, so that's often popular, but not a ton of participation. A school like Springstead, around 1,800 students, you're looking at, about 28 total participated in the season passes. But WikiWatchy Hernando did have some bigger numbers. So these are the statewide varsity football ticket prices. 26 districts responded. You can see we're at the $10 mark, which out of the 26, that was actually the highest occurrence, or the most common price, I should say. The districts around us, Citrus is at 8 with parking. Pasco's at 7 with parking. Pasco does not offer a cash option. Citrus does. I did want to note that 17 of the 26 that responded do still charge parking as well, and many of the districts are not cashless, are cashless. So they have no option to not. They're always getting that processing fee and that convenience fee. So while $10 does seem like a lot, and I tend to agree with you, based on the temperature of where we're at across the state and the fact that we got rid of parking, I think we're good. And there's some numbers I'll show you later on to kind of back that up, along with that $8 student price, which I think is cool too. These are all the other tickets. So for any JV events or any other varsity sports, regular season events, we're at $6. So
Mr.
again,
Kupchak,
yes.
Mr. Johnson, I think, wanted to ask you a question on
Yes,
your
sir.
other slide, possibly.
Go back.
Yeah, just in passing, I am not in favor of going cashless. I think there's a policy, in fact, an ordinance by the county commission that we have to have accept cash? If I have
Sure.
one.
Yeah, we've been having a cash option at every single gate.
And you're very good at correcting mistakes when they occur.
Yes, and we're definitely, not ashamed. We're going to mess up from time to time, but yeah, no, 100%. We've been offering cash since the first of this year, and continue to do so. I can only speak for athletics. I can't speak for any other events or extracurriculars, but definitely athletics. We've been offering cash.
Okay, we can proceed.
So again, I think you can see there, I think we're right where we need to be with all the other cash prices, or excuse me, all the other ticket prices. Pasco's at 5, Citrus is at 6. So we're right where we need to be there as well, I feel. And 4 of the 26 districts did respond, saying they did offer discounted tickets to students for those games as well. So maybe something to consider for next year. So I didn't get as great a response from my counterparts across the state on this survey. I only got 16 districts to respond, but only 4 of the 16 districts offer any type of family pass. They varied from 2 all the way up to 5 people in that pass, what they considered a quote-unquote family. And all 4 of them did cover the entire school year of athletics. The cost ranged between $200 and $250. Citrus, for example, is at $250. Pasco, they said they do allow it, but it is up to each school how they want to configure it. Again, participation was low. Again, just from the information I got from my counterparts across the state, they said anywhere from 10 to 50 per school that did it were those that were purchased. So not a ton of participation, but definitely a lot of value. And again, I'll show you some information, some numbers there as we get further through this. I just wanted to give you an idea of where we're at. Again, this is average. These are our 3 biggest expenses at the middle school level. You have equipment and uniforms, officials, and your SROs and EMS. Those are the 3 biggest. Again, much smaller seasons, less sports, etc. At the high school level, our biggest yearly expenses are officials. You can see over $41,000. That's average across all 5. The next is equipment and uniforms, and then you have other things like the SROs, EMS, travel and hotels, and that varies greatly from year to year. That's really hard to budget for. You have the success like Hernando had last year with wrestling, with girls flag football, with baseball. They had a lot of travel, a lot of hotels, a lot of meals, a lot of charter buses, which I know the district does help cover those charter buses, but a lot of travel for them last year. So that's definitely one that will fluctuate. Technology, things like huddle and cameras and things of that nature, and then field maintenance as well, which has risen substantially over the past 3 to 5 years. So those are the biggest that we have to cover. Some other things I did not include, you can see there, things like dues, fees, and fines, awards and recognition, hospitality, medical supplies and equipment, safety supplies and equipment, rentals. So for example, renting the YMCA pool or renting the beach courts at Sun West, things like that. Big ticket purchases, scoreboards. Sometimes the district covers them, sometimes the district doesn't. For example, all of Springstead scoreboards were purchased in-house with general athletic funds and sponsorships and whatnot. And then emergency purchases, like when an ice machine goes out, right? So you have those things pop up. None of those supersede the previous ones I showed you, but again, some other things that do add up quick. And again, you have some of those surprises at times. So our biggest stream of revenue, really our only consistent stream of revenue and dependable stream of revenue are our ticket sales. So I kind of compared last year. Again, I'm only going off of fall right now because we haven't completed winter yet. We're in the middle of it. But you can see there, football, we sold a little over 20,000 tickets in '24, and we're up 7.5% this year in football. In volleyball, the same trend, a little over 4,000. We're up to over 4,400, which is up 8.7%. So even though we raised the ticket prices at football, attendance did go up. And I do think some of it has to do with the cash. I do think having that cash option is quick, is easy. I think people enjoy having that option. So I think that helps. And I also think, based on my travels across the district, I feel like school spirit is up. So there's that. And then you can see, again, across all sports the whole year, 24-25, those were our average total ticket sales at the high school level and the middle school level. So just real quick, you see the 85,000 there, 86,000. If you go up, our biggest expenses, right? Our biggest expenses on average are over 88,000. So you're asking, how do we cover that little bit there? You definitely, those athletic fees help big time. Sponsorships, donations and grants, and then you also have your boosters and fundraising, right? So that kind of helps everything balance out. And if there is, if we are in the positive, anything substantial, that usually goes towards something like a scoreboard or like weight room equipment or cheer mats, things of that nature, uniforms, etc. So that's kind of where we're at from a financial perspective. I did want to kind of cost out, looking at Citrus's pass. Citrus's pass is for a family of 4 for $250. It covers the entire year. In our district, that would be over a $2,300 value, so that's a steal. And even if you only went to a quarter of those games, because obviously I can't imagine everyone's going to every single one of those games. But even if you went to a quarter of those games, it's still a $578 value. So definitely taking a hit there, but I could understand that being attractive for a family of 4. So some things to finish that I feel like we need to really get a grip on is what is the actual demand and how many people is this really going to affect? How many people would actually participate in this? Is it worth going through all this for 10 people to 10 families to participate in a district our size? And then if we were to move in this direction, whether it's something smaller or something as grand as the entire package across the whole year, it would have to be digital and an ID would have to be required, which I know may be uncomfortable for some people, but ultimately I feel like in order to keep the fidelity and keep it where how it needs to be and help the people it needs to actually help, we would need to monitor it a little more closely.
And that would cost as well, right? That would be an extra cost.
Minimal, yeah. Any pass is just a $3 flat. Okay. Like there's no other processing. It's a one-time $3, and that's it at the initial purchase. And then because $250 up front, that's it's a good chunk. So we need to find, again, if we go in this direction, we need to find what that price is where people find it attractive, but it's also not hurting our athletic departments too much. And then the last question, just something to ponder as well, based on the participation numbers that we've seen, local and statewide, at least from the people that responded, maybe it's more prudent to do a family pass that's sports specific, just for football, just for volleyball, family of 4, just for soccer, that type of thing. So some things that, and I have not presented this to the athletic directors yet. They give me a lot of this information, obviously, but I have not presented it to them. I meet with them tomorrow. But definitely some questions for them to ponder as well. So that is my report.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do we have any comments from the board?
We do. Thank you for taking time out to do all of that.
Absolutely.
It's up to all of you what you decide. For me, I'm not really interested in any of it.
Okay.
Thank you for everything.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Anyone else?
And I'm not interested in.
I know what you meant.
I think we're fine how we are, but whatever they all want is fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Duval.
I would want the data on the pricing for passes, because we cannot afford to have, especially at the high schools.
Mm-hmm.
We're just barely scraping by right now with the expenses, and those are only going up.
Yes.
Every one of those.
I'm petrified they're going to raise the officials again.
Yes, and that's probably going to happen. So I don't want to price this out of having the ability to pay those requirements that we have to pay. Your officials, definitely, right off the top. Your equipment, your uniforms. Don't want to see that happen.
I appreciate the information. I think it would be hard for a lot of our families to come up with that $250 right off the bat. And I think that would deter them from buying, and that maybe why the numbers are so low, I think, for Citrus or one of the schools that you showed, how many passes were actually purchased. So in the long run, unfortunately, I don't feel that this is the right time to do it. It's like worth the squeeze, I think you said.
Yeah, juice worth.
Is the juice worth? Yeah, worth the squeeze. I think at this moment, maybe not. I was thinking that would cost definitely would cause us more headache to keep up with
Sure.
and maintenance of.
We really try to push the people to the season passes because, again, it's saving time. You're saving on the processing fees, and you're getting you get your tickets off the bat. You're getting a game free.
That's a big chunk.
So
it's a big chunk.
It is.
You can send
It
your
is.
kid on a Friday night and say,
But
okay, here's $10, go to the game.
100%. I'm just if you're planning on going to all 5 football games, to me, it's worth buying a $40 season pass. You're
Some people
saving
don't
some
have
money
it.
there. So we just push people to that because we really feel like that's usually the best financial decision if you're truly planning on going to all the games, or at least the majority of them. So.
Right, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, it's looking at your slides, it seemed like the expenses and the revenue for kind of coincided. They were very
about
close.
right there. Yeah.
So if you wanted to offset an additional cost, it seems to me like the sponsorship would be the place to raise it for the businesses
Sure.
who put their banners up in fields and whatnot.
Yeah, the sponsor, we do a good job. Our ADs and coaches do a good job of fundraising and getting as many sponsorships as they can and whatnot to help get us up above over the hump and make sure we're running first class programs. So yeah, absolutely.
So it sounds that the board agrees that we're going to just leave it the way it is and appreciate all of your hard work.
Absolutely.
Presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. See you later.
So thank you. So the workshop is adjourned at 4:58 p.m. Thank you.